Some organizations work very hard to weasel in the promises they make. They imply great customer service or amazing results or spectacular quality, but don't deliver. The consumer notices. What happens when the promise breaks? Any customer that walks away disrespected and defeated represents tens of thousands of dollars out the door, in addition to the failure of a promise the brand made in the first place. So why is brand loyalty declining? Brand loyalty is declining because brands have not kept their part of the bargain. It's easy to say your brand will be something specific, but actually pulling it off requires a kind of intentionality and consistency most brand leaders haven't dedicated enough time to. And that is paraphrasing Seth Godin, marketing guru, on the topic of brand loyalty. And with that, welcome to the House Einstein podcast, the best podcast in real estate and Boulder and Colorado matters that you'll find anywhere. This is podcast 117. I'm Osman Parvez, and with me is Hamish Crabb.
Hello, hello. The first and only real estate podcast. I'm pretty sure.
Are we really the first and only real estate podcast? I think we're the first.
So.
I don't think we're the first in Boulder. Well, actually, no, because I started. There was a gap.
Oh, yeah.
I had a couple of year gap. So actually, we might be the first in Boulder, but we're definitely the best in Boulder. There's no argument, and possibly the best in the entire Rocky Mountain West when it comes to real estate matters and stuff that touches on major cities like Boulder and Denver. But
and
yeah, this is podcast.
Beyond. Yeah.
And sometimes beyond. And this podcast is 117. And that's a lot. Boy, that feels like we've been doing this a while. We're going to walk you through our mission and our topics of the day before we get started. And our mission at the House Einstein Brokerage, which sponsors this podcast, is to help you make a smarter real estate decision. If you are a client or would like to consider becoming a client of the brokerage, visit us at houseeinstein.com. We just launched a new website, so feel free to give us your critique.
Stress test it.
If you see any bugs, we'd welcome your feedback there. But if you are not a client, please, if you're just listening to this podcast, don't make any major life decisions. Don't buy or sell real estate on the basis of anything you hear in the pod. This pod is entertainment only. And yes, our attorneys make us say that. Okay, so if you'd like to hear our thoughts on active listings, which we don't talk about in this pod, but if you'd like to hear our thoughts on active listings, go to houseeinstein.com and sign up for the newsletter. There should also be a link in the show notes, and that's where we talk about active listings with a very critical eye. But because of the rules that govern the real estate industry, we can't talk about active listings in this podcast because it is just disseminated to everyone. You have to sign up for the free newsletter, which then we treat you like a prospective client, and we're happy to share our honest opinions about what's going on in real estate land when it comes to listings. Our core topic today, our closing table topic. Oh, I like how you called it Team Jersey. I like that, Hamish.
You said that, and I was like, oh,
Did I?
Stealing it. Yeah.
I didn't. Okay, well then that's why I like it so much. Really, this came up this week because we're having lots of conversations with prospective clients about the differences between brokerages, and the reality of the way it works in the real estate world is that people don't choose an agent on the basis of the brokerage that they happen to have hung their license with. They choose to work with agents that they can trust. The brokerage is almost secondary to. Let me find the exact quote I was gonna help. Help people
it basically
understand.
It brings us into the closing table kind of on its own. It's a good one. I think. Go ahead if you found it.
No, I haven't.
Filling the dead air.
There was one particular. No, we're not going to have dead air. It was just one particular thing that I thought was really, really succinct. So, brokerage choice influences marketing, fiduciary stance, and process, and people have a mental map of listings. They also have a sense of what these brokerages are, but they're sort of a due diligence check item, right? They want, like, they meet an agent and then they say, okay, well, this agent is somebody I trust, and they happen to work with Compass or they happen to work with Remax, and that adds credibility. So a lot of agents, when they're new in the industry, literally are paying for that credibility because they don't know what they're doing. And because most brokerages will take brand new agents with no experience, they use the brand as proof, social proof, if you will, that they are competent. And there are two perspectives on the brokerage world. We're going to get into it in depth. We're starting to get into it right now, and I don't want to get too far down this road.
Right, we're still on topics. Yeah.
But we're going to talk about the consumer perspective, and then we're going to talk about the agent perspective. And our hope is that this guides you in understanding this landscape, especially given that it's changing rapidly, with Real announcing its acquisition of Remax, which just happened this week. It's a really big deal. It creates a formidable competitor, and we're going to talk about how that changes or impacts the evolving brokerage landscape. And do brokerages matter? We're going to really get into it. And then once we're done having that in-depth conversation, we're going to share a brief tale from the trenches, one that is more sordid than most. It involves an agent who is no longer in the business, and a couple of the reasons she's no longer in the business. Then we're going to do a market update. We're going to talk about the high end, and we're also going to take a look at specific inventory levels from a year ago across Louisville, Lafayette, Longmont, Boulder, Superior, and Lyons. That's our market update segment. And then we're going to cover sales of the week. And we have quite a few, so I hope we get to all of them, but we have something to say about each of these recent sales. 303 Skylark Way, 827 Trail Ridge Drive, 797 Aspen Way, 1280 Berea, a property for which we had a backup offer on, 1627 17th Street, 375 South 40th Street, and 670 West Pine Street. And then we are going to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion that is hopefully not too painful for people to bear through, but just a little...
It's somewhat relevant to the closing table, too.
I think it's very relevant to the closing table, particularly for the agents that listen to this pod, and we know you're out there. And then we're going to talk about House Bill 1114 and House Bill 1308, one of which was just killed. 1114 was just killed or postponed indefinitely, but 1308 is moving forward. And these two House bills here in the state of Colorado have a huge impact, or may have a huge impact on development going forward. And then our Carveouts, that's our segment where we talk about anything other than real estate. And although it could be real estate related, it's just whatever we feel like talking about that happens to be top of mind or something we're working on. And that is taken quite literally from the Acquired podcast. It's a segment they do that I find quite humanizing and engaging.
Authentic,
so I stole it from them. 100% stole it from Acquired. And
as we're the first and only real estate podcast, we also came out with the Carveout section.
No. That's 100% taken from them. I will say inspired by them.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a quick wrap up. So our goal is to usually get this podcast complete in about 2 hours, but no promises. We'll do the best we can. I'm actually dealing with a little bit of a back injury, which I've been icing. And so hopefully it holds up, because standing, which is my setup, standing without movement for that length of time could trigger it. So we're going to find out. Yeah.
And Carveouts, Oz, you went on a little field trip to INSTAAR?
Yeah. Our Carveouts are, I'm going to talk about INSTAAR, which is a lab at CU that is studying climate change. And Hamish, you're talking about something in After Effects.
After Effects as a whole, just the labyrinth that it is. So it's okay. I think leave it at that. But I for the listeners that aren't following us on Instagram, first of all, follow us on social media wherever you use it. But I cut out the topic segment, and I wanted to get the little sound bites of what we're talking about in the Carve-Out section for that. So now I'm complete.
This podcast is sponsored by House Einstein. We serve buyers and sellers in Colorado, focusing on Boulder, Denver, and several mountain resort towns, including Breckenridge and Winter Park. Our mission is simple: help you make a smarter real estate decision. You can learn more at houseeinstein.com or our YouTube channel, where you'll find videos on neighborhoods, specific listings, and much, much more. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are not deeply familiar with what's happening in real estate, let me walk you through some of the recent events and the brokerage or brands that we're going to be covering. So Compass acquired a large number of brands, and that deal closed in January. So when you think you're using your local Century 21, you're really using Compass, right? So Compass has acquired, let's see, let me get the details right.
I mean,
hold on. Okay, so yeah, the Compass Anywhere merger closed in January. And so Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, Sotheby's, Corcoran, Better Homes and Gardens, and Christie's are all under the Compass International Holding entity. And for sure, they'll be rolling out their back end to all of these brokerages. And that created a behemoth of a company. They are now the largest real estate brokerage. And we're also going to be talking about some others, including the agency, which has got a presence. It's a boutique brand. It's got a presence here in Boulder. We're going to talk about this Real/Remax acquisition that was just announced this week, and why that. Well, I don't know what that sound was. Was that Mr. Ball sneezing?
Mr. Ball sneezing. Yeah.
Mr. Ball.
My cat.
Man.
Yeah, I know.
Don't you know?
Come on, man.
This is a quiet room. Yeah, I would be sneezing at that too, Mr. Balls, because it's really. I mean, I get why Remax is being acquired by Real. It makes a lot of sense, particularly given their declining market share and their brand presence. We're going to talk about Keller Williams. We're going to talk about EXP. And
then we get local, yeah.
And then we're going to get, I would say, regional. Like we have 8Z that has a number of agents. I guess AI says less than 200. Which is still a pretty sizable brokerage. And then the other big one that's based in our region, it's Denver-based, but it's a Mile High Modern. We're going to talk about their branding and their market positioning and what consumers get a sense of, like, what is this brand and how do agents look at these brands. And what's also really fascinating, Hamish, is there's a regionality to how brands are perceived that I don't see in other industries quite as much. So for example, Keller Williams, we have friends that are brokers with Keller Williams, but they have virtually no brand presence in Boulder. And their office even closed in Boulder. I was approached years ago to consider opening the new office, and I said no way, because their brand did not have a market perception that aligns with our brand, which is all about helping people make smart real estate decisions. Doesn't line up with any of these others in any clean way.
Without getting,
but hold on, let me just wrap up with Keller.
Level. Yeah.
Keller has a really strong brand in other markets. There's an agent that I had a nice meeting with 2 weeks ago at Scratch Labs. Great place for lunch meetings, by the way. And she comes from the Minneapolis market, and she told, according to her, Keller in Minneapolis has a huge presence. Like, they are the dominant player, or at least one of the dominant players. I think she made it, my recollection is she made it sound like they're the dominant player, but for sake of inaccuracy, I'll say they're one of the dominant players. Okay.
Yeah, only thing I can think similar to that is, like, we had these clients coming up from Florida, and I was alongside with them on showings, and they're like, so what's up with Walgreens here? I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, Walgreens in Florida are, like, nice. Here they're ratty. And I was like, yeah, that's Walgreens in Colorado, at least. But that was really funny to have the conversation about.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So that could be how that company is organized and managed. I don't know anything about Walgreens.
Locally.
I know enough to be dangerous when it comes to public companies, because I used to be a equities analyst, an associate at an investment bank, and I was in their research department. So, putting together the kind of tables that AI put together for us in preparation of this podcast is what I did every day. And The big picture is Compass is the behemoth. 340,000 agents are now underneath the holding company. And Real Remax, once the acquisition is complete, it will have about 180,000. So you're looking at about half the size, maybe a little more than half the size of Compass. EXP has 83,000 agents, supposedly. And these are rounded estimate numbers. Keller has 161,000. And a lot of these companies have moved into mortgage and title because of compression on commissions. So you'll see subsidiaries of all of these brokerages, including some of the regional ones, right? They have their own captive title, their own captive mortgage company. And by the way, they can be, I mean, you're talking about huge conflicts of interest in managing those, right? We have to have disclosures announcing that you could choose somebody else and here's our fees. But those disclosures don't really account for the other potential conflicts of interest, in my opinion.
I think, yeah, so I'm remembering when I was a newbie kind of to like the real estate industry, one of the largest drivers, I think, for a lot of agents when they're finding where to hang their licenses, commission splits. And so that's kind of almost like the carrot. The carrot is in multiple segments, but that's what kind of a lot of brokerages are dangling to try and attract talent. And because brokerages are competing on that front, they're working to make up the margin elsewhere. Just recapping basically what you said, but they'll create kind of ancillary businesses to the transaction process. And that's where you get these like disclosures and all sorts of like the umbrella of brokerages and transaction services.
Well, they have to, right? If they've shaved their splits, is how it's commonly referred to. If they've shaved their splits down for agents, they have to make money somewhere else. And some of these, you know, when Compass IPO'd, they basically took IPO money and bought their growth. They pursued relationships with top performing agents in major markets, and they did sweetheart deals with those agents with cash bonuses, stock bonuses, and longer term contracts with lower splits. And they also gave those agents some, I would call this fluff. It didn't cost them anything, but they called those agents founding agents, right?
That's right.
Because they were some of the first agents that joined Compass. And Compass's pitch really has been brand prestige, and more recently a tech platform, right? Like they have a platform where it's easy to produce all of the content. And if you look at Robert, I think it's Refkin, is that his name?
Yeah, that's it.
Like when he told his story, IPO roadshow ad nauseum, it was about a family member. I think it's his mom, and he wanting to create the back end for his mom, like the marketing that she was not good at. And most agents are not good at this, right? They suck at online presence, they suck at marketing themselves. And so the idea was to make it really easy and then put a shiny wrapper on that business. And their branding was great. I got to admit it. There's no argument. Way better than anything else that existed when they launched. Like they made Remax and Coldwell Banker look darn old-fashioned, which they are, right? So, but as they grew, they no longer have offered those incredible deals to the early agents. Those deals are phasing out. So now they're the big established player. And I don't take this the wrong way, Compass agents, but you're the Walmart of real estate. You're the largest brokerage. And unfortunately, the consumers don't know that you're the same thing as Century 21 and Coldwell Banker and Sotheby's and Corcoran. Like you're all the same entity. And when the house has both sides of the deal, it might be both sides of the deal. Like they claim 40% dual agent, like they claim both double ending.
Double ending.
They're claiming 40% double ending, but that's across brokerage brands, right? You just the consumer doesn't realize
because the umbrella,
that when your buyer's agent is with Coldwell and your listing agent is with Compass,
Century 21,
all the money is still flowing up to Compass, right? That's how it works when you own the brand. So it's not uncommon to see consolidation in all sorts of industries. For a very long time, real estate was fractured, and Compass, in my opinion, was the big mover to begin consolidation and took advantage of zero interest rates and a very frothy stock market to raise a large amount of capital. And kudos to them. It's a brilliant business model, and now they're the big player. Remax, on the other hand, has a different foundation story, right? They were founded in the late 70s, and Dave
Here
and
in
Gail
Denver, too.
Here in Denver, and Dave and Gail Linenger were disruptors. They said, hey, hold on, everybody. You don't need to pay 50 or 60% splits with your office. Instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to charge you a desk fee, and you keep 100% of the commissions. And it took a while for them to get that brand off the ground, but they appealed to agents who were frustrated giving away half their commissions to their brokerage, and it exploded. So Remax was a really dominant brand for a long time, but they grew on the basis of having a much more favorable split. And then as time went on, their splits no longer became so favorable, right? So full
the
disclosure,
desk fee grew, right?
my personal experience, I worked for a boutique on Nantucket, and then when we moved to Colorado, I hung my license with Remax. And even then, the split wasn't you keep 100%. We had to pay a franchise fee, it was called, to the owner of our local franchise. So, and we had to pay all sorts of like the fees were insane. When I would submit a deal packet with the commission check, and then 10 days later, her name was Debbie. Debbie would cut me back a check, and I'd look at all the fees. I'm like, what are all these fees? And then every month there was a fee for the desk, and then there was like a copier fee and a telephone fee, even though we weren't using the telephone or the copier. And then the part that really drove me crazy was the 13th month fee, which in December they hit us up with another month of fees, and I never understood why they were charging us for an extra month when they're 12 months in the year. And that was really the end of it for me, was I realized that the Remax approach, so we had joined Remax because they had better training. They had a special, this particular franchise,
like good onboarding, right?
Had set up a couple of senior agents with an educational program, and my now ex felt very strongly she wanted that educational program. And even though I had had a couple of years of experience with other brokerages, with Windwalker, she felt really strongly she wanted to be part of that training program. So we did it. We did like 10 deals under that training program, and learned quite a bit. I'm glad we did it. But then once we were through that cycle and we were dealing with the insanity of pretend you're not paying splits, instead get this crazy fee schedule, and that they could change it at any time, right? This is the part that really drove us crazy, is mid-contract, they hit us with new fees.
Yeah.
And my ex is like, we need to go meet with this guy, the managing broker, and talk about this. And we brought it up. We're like, hold on. Our contract says that this is the deal, and you've just changed the whole deal with this email that says, times are tough, we need to increase fees. Like, what's up with that? You can't do that. He's like, I'm doing it anyway. If you don't like it, quit. We're like, okay, we're quitting. And that's when we left Remax and launched the first brokerage that I co-founded. It's still in action today. It's called Silver Fern. Later in 2013, created House Einstein. But the point I'm trying to make is that business model of Remax, right, was built on no splits, desk fees, and then they franchised the hell out of it. Like, they have an insane number of franchisees, all of whom then charge a franchise fee on top of that. And then there's a bunch of other craziness fees that drove me nuts with Remax. And so that business model has been declining, right? Like, they've seen erosion, and that's why they agreed to be that and probably Dave and Gail are done, right? Like, they're the majority shareholders. They're elderly. Why would they continue to be in this business when they can finally cash out? And that's, I think, what they're doing with Real's acquisition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's to me, it's like this consistent cycle of like vying for market share, right? Like Remax, they were able to kind of advertise their like 100% of the commission, you keep that, and then they were able to keep it up, until they grew so big, and they're like, okay, you know what, we're gonna have to start adding in some interesting fees. And sure enough, it starts to bother the agents. Now a new thing comes along and it's offering very competitive splits and everything, so everybody jumps over there, and it can only keep it up for so long, and then it's going to have to start kind of clawing it back. Or, if it gets enough market share, it might be able to just run the thing.
So there's a switching cost. I would say that actually most agents don't jump just because there's a slight change in the splits. They're dissatisfied.
The switching cost is real.
They're dissatisfied with the culture. They're dissatisfied with the tech. And then they look at how much they're paying for services they don't use, and they decide, I'm going to think about switching other brands to a different brand. But then they have to do the evaluation of these other brands, And they also have the cost of new signs, announcing to their sphere they're with a new brokerage. Often they've even changed their email addresses. It's messy. So that's why most agents don't switch. So Real in 2014 launched out of Miami. And so this EXP was first, right? They said, hey, we're going to do a cloud brokerage, and we're going to do 80-20 splits to a cap. And I think that cap is $16,000. I'm not entirely sure. That commensurates to about $80,000 in commission. And as you paid $16,000 to EXP, you've capped out for the 12-month period. And that's what has grown that brokerage. That plus promises for possibly equity or profit sharing, although they're vague. I don't know. And also the whole thing that Color does as well, which is sort of Ponzi scheme.
The MLM-y thing.
Yeah, right? The
MLM flavored, I think I saw it.
You forever get a piece of that. That appeals to people, right? Because it creates a residual income. So the ability to share with off its profits or get a piece of stock awards is also a selling point for EXP, but they don't have physical offices. That was their pitch. They grew like crazy. That's why they're up to 83,000 agents. They launched in 2009. And Real has said, we can do it even cheaper with AI. Rather than doing 80-20, we're going to do 85-15 to a $12,000 cap. And they've exploded. That's why all these agents have thrown their licenses there. It's not because Real's a great brokerage. It's because, frankly, these agents are cheap. And they want to pay the minimum amount to their brokerage. They don't want to pay more.
No, I'm with you. And they'll like throw things. I think I was reading like a few of these are kind of slanted as well towards like very independent agents where they kind of want to do things their own way and whatnot. But all of these qualities or benefits are kind of like external to the brass tacks, being how the commissions are split and the cheapness of these agents, right? Like, especially, I think, and these, I use like Rockstar Lifestyle or Rockstar agents, but like these Rockstar hyper independent agents, like they just want their money and they don't, care for much else.
Okay, so the majority of agents do less than 3 deals a year. And that's the agents that do deals. The majority of agents don't even do deals, right? Like last year, the NAR announced that it was like, I can't even remember what the stat was.
I think it's 70%.
70% of agents didn't close a single deal. So there's a lot of agents that part-time it, and maybe they do a deal every other year. And so for their perspective, the brokerage is all entirely cost. And that's their mentality. But those agents don't do the majority of deals. The majority of deals are done by a small percentage of agents. And every time I've done Boulder's numbers as a ranking, which is basically every 5 years or so, it ends up being about 70% of the deals are done by 30% of the agents. Not quite the 80-20 rule, but close. And those agents, they could be at any of these brokerages and they would be that successful because they are driven, they are professional, they have got great marketing, and they had great marketing before the brokerage. Like the brokerage is not the reason they're that successful. And a lot of
referral network, right?
They have a great referral network. They're good at what they do. And we're in that category of top producing agents in Boulder as an independent brand, which is a very different animal with a very different focus on what we're not trying to prestige market. We are trying to educate, advise. We care about due diligence and fiduciary responsibility. Those are the values that we put on our wall at the office because they are actually the values of the company, not just because they look good. And we think about it and talk about those. But we're a tiny little boutique. These are giant brokerages, and it's interesting to be recruited by them. Like Compass was recruiting me earlier this year, and they wanted to talk about their tech platform. And so we went down because they were really funny. Tell us about your tech platform. What's your tech platform? And I'm like, well, we have our own. And they're like, they were so flabbergasted by that. They're like, what do you mean you have your own? I'm like, we pull off the shelf components to do all. So they walk me through your tech platform, and they did. They said, okay, well, for our CRM we have this, for our advertising we have this, and I was like, okay, we do all of the same things. We just aren't reliant on House Einstein branded technology.
It's not an app. It's
a separate company that we pay as a service provider to do these things that are excellent, but we can switch service providers if they're not able to keep up. Like we're not behooving to the Compass photography team as a preferential. We do our own in-house photography. We also hire professional photographers from outside when we really want to spice it up a little bit and make sure it's even better. We will, in the past, we haven't done that in years, but we have brought in
We've
really
evolved
expensive,
since, but yeah.
outside
And especially
videographers and photographers that's what they do professionally, not just serve Compass agents.
But our garden isn't necessarily walled, right? So we're not going to like steer an agent into like a specific, you have to use the X, Y, and Z. But we are quick. And for CRM, for example, if we find a better one out there for a better cost, we're going to work to move over to it. Because if we don't see a benefit or it's superfluous, we can cut it out, right? We're not this huge conglomerate.
That's right. And there's also there's two more distinctions I want to make. And one is that the vast majority of agents are independent contractors. Hamish, you are an exception. But most agents within a brokerage are the independent. They're hanging their license there. They do not have to use the CRM, but they almost certainly have to use the transaction management software to get paid, because that's where compliance comes in. So Real, for example, they are 100% doing the whole thing in their platform, because that's how they're tracking every aspect of the deal. From an agent perspective, this is not necessarily a great thing to have your CRM be owned by the company, because if you have some disagreement and need to get out, who owns the CRM? Who owns the database? Okay,
who's got your leads? Yeah.
And so they don't. And I saw this with an investment firm where we had a sales team that was doing a very different business, but they hated Salesforce. They absolutely refused to put their contacts in Salesforce. Why did they want to not? Why were they so resistant to putting their sales contacts into Salesforce? Because that was their value add, and they did not want to share their relationships with the company. I mean, they were so protective of it, and it was hilarious watching senior management, bang the gavel on the conference room table, saying, "Why are you not putting your contacts so I can track how you're managing them?" And they were like, "Nope. Sorry, they were not." And literally, the CEO is right there in the room, and they're not answering the question, because it was obvious to anybody why they weren't doing it. That was their value. So our approach has been, we found a very bespoke CRM that's been working really well, and we continue to lean into it, Hamish, you and I, as well as other members of the team, to leverage that CRM to make sure we don't drop a ball with our current deals, and also that we're managing our prospects very well. But every member of the team has that as part of our service providers
included.
It's sort of funny because I was forced into it. I initially felt like everyone should have their own CRM. Go get it. It's not a company expense. And
in a way, too, that's kind of like gives the agents their independence, and it's a little bit more trusting, but then you're forced into it. Carry on.
Well, I'm not interested in stealing anybody's clients, but
no.
I thought, had the basis of my experience, that no agent in their right mind would want to use the company CRM. But this agent who no longer is with the company demanded we get a CRM. And in the wake of, the process was started before she left, but it was executed after she was gone. And the CRM we've used now for like 5 years, and it's been great. It works really, really well. So I'm glad for her pushing for it. And all of these brokerages have an available CRM for you to use. It's just, you're not forced to use it because you're an independent contractor. That's the part I'm trying to make clear. But you are likely forced to use their transaction management side, because otherwise they won't pay you unless they can verify the deal is complete.
Which is something that I think we've built a system for. And granted, we're small and powerful, and that has a lot of advantages. But we have our own compliance system, and it's lightweight and very quick. It doesn't clunk an agent down or anything. If anything, too, our CRM, I think, is overpowered. Like we could do more, and I think we'll start leaning into that too. I
mean, so Hamish, the reason that our compliance side is light is because we have competent agents, and we have a human being visually checking signatures and making sure it's legit. But they don't make mistakes that often. Like, no. So they're agents that are at the top of their game. So they don't need to be micromanaged. But when you're in the world of babysitting agents that do one deal every 2 years, they're not going to know what they're doing. And this is the biggest gap in the consumer side of this. Like, the consumers don't realize that this young new agent that just got their license 2 years ago and has done 4 deals, has been supervised through every step of those deals, and is making mistakes the whole way through that the senior agent is correcting. And you're paying for experience, but you're not really getting it. You're training this new agent. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone starts somewhere. But the thing that there is, I guess the thing that's wrong with it is the deception. Because an agent that
Smoke and
relies
mirrors.
well, it's an agent that relies on the brand or the jersey they're wearing to convey credibility and experience is not an agent that you probably want to hire. You want to hire an agent that actually has that experience and expertise, no matter what jersey they're wearing. So the consumer side of this, I think, is where I want to focus in on, because most people listening to this podcast are not agents, and everyone has their own perception of where these brands, land. But we've talked about, let me just wrap up the agent kind of laydown of how we look at these brands. Like Compass is Compass. They're a giant entity. Everyone it practically seems to be a Compass agent these days. There's no distinction, but they are a prestige brand, and they've done a good job of maintaining that sense of prestige. The sub-brands under Compass, Coldwell Banker is old school. Century 21 has a non-existent presence in Boulder. ERA is even more old school. Sotheby's and Christie's, both of which are now under Compass, have a auction house feel, and we used to compete with them on Nantucket. And they have that association with luxury is 100 years old. And it's very difficult to create that from scratch. It's like Hermes or other luxury brands that even though you're buying a scarf, it's a totally different experience, and they want to associate their luxury listing with an auction house, even though it has nothing to do with the auction house. Okay?
Right.
So that's Sotheby's and Christie's, and Corcoran has no presence here. I know they're huge in New York City, but I don't really feel like I'm qualified to comment on Corcoran.
Like Shark Tank Corcoran, is it?
Yeah. Oh no, that's Shark Tank Corcoran, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a firehouse and a very impressive entrepreneur, and she's hilarious too. By the way, I really love listening to her. Although I don't watch Shark Tank, I've just heard her on podcasts and stuff like that. Audiobooks, I think I've heard her talking on.
I used to watch Shark Tank for my finance class. So
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So Remax, we've already talked about Remax from an agent perspective, why you would have joined Remax 25 or 30 years ago, and why you would probably have exited, or why you may not have exited, because you're just used to doing business that way. And there's a very prominent agent here in Boulder, I'm not going to mention their name, who recently left Remax, had been with Remax for a really long time, and eventually they went to 8Z, which was shocking, because I mean, of the choices, 8Z, I never would have expected that agent to go there, but they went to 8Z. So it happens. Agents, even after decades of working with one particular brokerage, may decide to switch teams. And it's not because of the splits necessarily, because a lot of these brokerages have caps. There are other reasons than the splits. And the successful agent that's been doing it 20 years doesn't need the tech platform that comes with these brokerages. In fact, is likely going to look at this tech platform with annoyance, because being forced to do a new way of business after 20 or 30, it's an old dog being forced to learn new tricks. We're not really happy. And the snacks you're throwing at us aren't really worth it. So we'll do it because we've made that commitment. But it's not exactly a happy movement to this new brokerage model, right? And I think the same thing is going to happen with the Compass agents or the Coldwell agents. Right, we know two of them that I've done so many deals with, both of which are older agents, that starting in January, they're going to gradually be forced into Compass's way of doing things with Compass's tech. No matter what,
works out.
Look, it makes no sense for Compass to have completely separate tech stacks. They may be branded Coldwell, but it's the same. Like it's a different GUI on the front of the system.
And they're not going to dissolve these brands. They're likely just going to kind of keep them going, more or less, I guess, because of the perception. Or,
I mean, some of them are. It depends, right? Like, so if you acquired Remax and you're Real, you acquired a very different business model. So Real is 100% like it is, and there are no franchisees. Yeah. And Remax is almost entirely franchisees. So they have got a very difficult cultural problem to solve. And I don't know how they're going to do it. They may succeed, they may fail, but I think it's sort of like buying the newspaper business, and the private equity firm bought the Daily Camera. Like it didn't result in better reporting. Okay, they were like, we're gonna milk this business of cash for as long as we can, And our business model, our M&A model says 10 years, we're going to continue to see erosion of agents out of RE/MAX. We're going to see franchisees switch teams, and we're going to keep them running as long as we can to milk this cash cow. Because when they paid only, what was the multiple?
880. Oh, 7 times, right?
7 times earnings, which basically tells you that anything past 7 years exceeds their acquisition price, right? And the stock got
pretty
a bump
solid.
After they. So
yeah, the stock got a good bump.
Right, is keep the current revenue model for 7 years and the business paid for itself, and give them a lot more footprint. And likely they're going to transition a lot of those agents to Real. Doesn't have much of a presence here in Boulder. No. We've seen a few agents with Real, like 2 with Real. They're going to have a lot more as some of those agents drop from RE/MAX and switch to Real. I imagine there'll be incentives to do that because Real is more profitable than RE/MAX. The franchise fee is not that much money.
Yeah, that's what it was kind of looking like when we were researching it, is that it seems like the natural progression is just to start leaving RE/MAX for Real. Especially, I wonder if they'll do some sort of like easier internal transfer or something.
Well, I think it's going to... So with Compass is all their mini brands, right? The Coldwell and Century and then the auction houses. I think that there's regional dominance. And that regional dominance is largely because of the agents, not the brand. So definitely. If you look, Century has no presence here, but there are parts of the country that they have a pretty sizable presence. So keep it going with the Century 21 brand name. The cost of rebranding the company in that market to Compass, if Compass is not dominating there, it doesn't make sense. But gradually they'll move everyone over to the same tech stack, and then they may start retiring the brands that don't make any sense to keep. Office by office, gradually shut them down because they don't really add a lot of value. So I think that's likely what's going to continue to happen with both Compass's acquisition of all these legacy brands and Real's acquisition of RE/MAX. It's just a question of squeezing as much profit out of these brands as possible and gradually shut the ones that aren't profitable going forward. EXP, I think, is the odd man out, if you will. They're the ones that have not decided to go acquire a legacy brand, right? They're the ones that have continued to grow under EXP. But if I was on their management team, I would be like, we need to go buy what's left. We should have consolidated 2 while the consolidating was good, and we haven't. Okay, so that's
true. It is like the consolidation of giants, right? It's yeah.
I mean, the reason for the consolidation is not because it's better for the consumer. The reason for the consolidation is because it's better for the executives and the shareholders. Anybody that tells you different is lying to you. So EXP and Keller makes sense to me as a partnership. Like, they should look at ways to, because that together would be another strong competitor.
And then you'd have 3
with an old legacy brand and a upstart that is, gotten all on board with all these agents that don't want to pay splits, or are excited by the stock bonuses or the profit sharing. So you can buy your growth in a lot of different ways, and that's the agent side of all of this. Okay, we haven't even gotten really to the consumer side, and the biggest thing that we haven't talked about, Hamish, is private exclusives and Zillow. So Zillow technically is a brokerage. They don't have a lot of agents, but they are a brokerage. Mostly they sell leads to these other agents at other brokerages and charge exorbitantly for them, right? And they also sell showcasing, which we have paid for at the request of our clients, and then fought them, still fighting them for their overbilling practices. And I've been really shocked. I mean, I guess not shocked because it's not the first time that I've had a hard time ending the relationship with Zillow, but joined Zillow and their showcase program at the request of our client. And so we were customers of Zillow. So Zillow has a very strange model, but what they've decided to do is own the consumer experience. That has been their business plan, and they killed it. Most searches originate on Zillow, and people shopping Zillow, that's their perception of what the market looks like. So the problem has been this private exclusives game plan that Compass introduced, which Zillow and Compass had a lawsuit over it, and that lawsuit has been dropped. But basically, Zillow didn't want to put listings on their platform that had been marketed as private exclusives under Compass. And
so
they
once the Compass private exclusives became public, Zillow was like, "Nuh-uh."
Right. So Compass
Okay.
is well, there was another piece to that. I think it was part of the acquisition. With the acquisition closing, look, I'm not a part of their legal team. Why did they drop the lawsuit? But let's talk about the consumer side of this. The consumer side of this is that you're a seller, and the pitch from Compass is we'll put you on as private exclusive. You'll be marketed to 180,000 Compass agents, right, or whatever the number is. That it's 340,000 total. I don't know how many are just Compass. It's in here somewhere in our data report. We're only going to market it to the Compass and the Compass people that have the app will see it, but it will not start days on market, and you can test the market with a price. Exactly. And that sounds kind of attractive because days on market can taint a listing, but it also is for sellers that aren't confident and agents that aren't confident in their pricing, and likely you're not going to get maximum value because you have limited the exposure of your listing. Typically, what you want is the broadest exposure of your listing. There are cases where you want to limit it. Okay, there's privacy issues. Sure. There's other reasons for private exclusives, but this fight over private exclusives have been, really annoying in some ways because it's been effective. Like I lost a client. This is like 5 years ago, and they told me, "Look, we're friends. You helped us on the buy side. We'd love to have you represent us, but we really want a big brand like Compass with all of their marketing behind it." And I said, their marketing is not more than we're doing. It's less than we're doing. And they said to me, they said, "Osman, we bought our house with a private exclusive. It wasn't on the MLS in California, the house we replaced this one with. So we think it works. And we feel more, we want to go with Compass." And I'm like, okay. So they went with Compass. They private exclusived it with one of the top agents in town for a period of time. Didn't sell. Then they put it on the MLS. Didn't sell. Then they fired that agent and hired another agent with the same brokerage. Still didn't sell. Prices come down and come down and come down. And they the amount of, in my opinion, the amount of distribution of that listing from the videography and photography has been very minimal, and the price has been wrong multiple
Actual
times.
Marketing, right? Yeah.
So it's fine. I'm glad I didn't get the listing. I wouldn't want a 3-year experience when you overprice it, a 3-year listing agreement. But it was sad to see that relationship go and the cost was because of this private exclusives that don't. Yeah. So just so everyone knows, you can look at all the private exclusives by downloading the Compass app. And I just did it this morning to make sure I got this right because I didn't want to talk about private exclusives unless I could verify it. And I looked up how many houses in my footprint. This morning I zoomed around Boulder. Our private exclusives not on the MLS. There are 5, and some of those had been marketed in the past last year. And
so they're relists.
They have been multiple years on market, and now they're private exclusives. There's nothing exclusive about it. There's nothing private about it. It is 100% marketing fluff, but it makes people feel like they're getting something. So. Just like when we used to advertise in the newspaper back on Nantucket, nobody bought a house from the newspaper. No one flipped it open and said, "I want that one." So, but it made sellers feel better that they were getting some value for their listing, and that's why private exclusives is this pretend value that is being created for sellers.
I'm not a regulator, but I think if you are able to download an app that is publicly available to view houses that will be going for sale, there's certainly a gray area there, right? Because it's no longer a private. I don't write the laws or the regulations for real estate, but if you're able to publicly download an app that will tell you about these so-called exclusive listings, I kind of am just stopping there on that conversation because it certainly doesn't feel like it's exclusive, and then that kind of means, to my understanding, that it then needs to be on the MLS as a public listing if it's being publicly advertised. But
I'm not the one that regulates the MLS,
nor me.
And I think that they could take issue with private exclusives, and they had, and this was a piece of the lawsuit against MLSs demanding that if you're forced us to sign an agreement that if we want to use the MLS, we have to put our listings on there. And they haven't been, right? So I don't know exactly how this plays out, but it has been, so there's the regulatory side of this, I think, has been ignored
asleep?
Or has not, well, maybe not asleep. Look, I'm not going to attack our regulator.
No, not.
But I've not understood how Compass, like you, I don't understand how Compass has gotten away with, we're going to advertise it for sale, but we're not going to put it on the MLS. But we signed this private agreement with the MLS saying we're going to put it on the MLS. So I think the penalties are relatively low, like 700 Highland is not on the MLS still. It closed, supposedly, with Compass agents.
It's on other stuff. Like it's syndicated as a sale, I think, but it's not still not on the MLS.
Where are you seeing it syndicated as a sale?
I'm not. Never mind.
We could circle back to this. But the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes agents will violate MLS rules and pay the fine because it makes sense to just pay the fine, then potentially taint your listing. So, for example, if we have somebody we're the listing agent, and hopefully the regulator is not listening to this, but we're the listing agent, and we have a buyer who's put it under contract, and the buyer is behaving in all sorts of shady ways, signaling to us, I don't think we have a deal, right? We may delay flipping that status to under contract because we think they're about to break up with us. And that's an MLS rule that we're intentionally violating, and there's a fine for it. But the only person that could complain is the buyer's agent, and typically they're not even noticing it. So to protect our client, we might violate an MLS rule. I've done that in the past, and I will do it again. And hopefully the MLS, I've done this once or twice, MLS people, and it was in the best interest of my clients to do that.
What I can see is Compass becoming, and I mean they're already on their way, so large that they can start to boss the MLS around. Whereas the MLS is kind of, and I think rightfully so, the central aggregate, all brokerages and everything kind of kneel before it. I think the MLS is a very, I mean, it's crucial for kind of like market fairness and like a true display of real estate info. But I can see, Compass getting so large that they can disrupt it. And I mean, shoot, if we lose the MLS, then it could be a real Wild West type of situation.
Well, that's what Zillow did, right? They created their own MLS. And they created it as consumer-friendly and consumer-centric. And it's a dirty secret of the real estate world, but more people are searching Zillow than they are searching the MLS directly by an order of magnitude. So most searches originate on Zillow. They don't originate on Realtor.com or Homes.com, the Realtor-owned version of Zillow. They originate on Zillow. And that was their business plan, basically, was to replace the MLS and then charge the heck out of, charge agents through the nose. And they've been very successful at it. And Compass's strategy looks to be kind of similar, except there's a lot of agents at Compass. But they would love it if they could keep their buyers and sellers just looking at the Compass app and not at Zillow. And that tease of, look, there's some private exclusives on the Compass app is a reason to go look at the Compass app. I now have it on my phone. I look at it, check every once in a while because I don't want to miss out on a house that a seller has stupidly marketed as a private exclusive. Like, I got to be honest about that. It usually is not the most intelligent decision is to market. It would be like if we said, hey, we're only going to share this with House Einstein agents. We're not going to share this with the other 99% of agents out there. But even Compass is not 100%, right? But they keep growing. They keep growing. So, I mean, I just think that if sellers are going to choose to go private exclusive, they should go in with eyes wide open to the real costs of being private exclusive. You're not really fooling anybody. You're not really testing the market. You're just limiting exposure and in a way that anybody can bypass just by having the app. So is it really that valuable to you? Maybe, but at least go in with eyes wide open and have that conversation. In our experience, the highest sale price is usually achieved with exposure to many agents who then bring in qualified buyers. Okay. So we have two giant platforms that are forming up. We've gone from a very fractured market. really two that are the biggest players, right? Real Remax and Compass. Yes, you have
Zillow is kind of their.
Zillow's not really a brokerage. They're more of an MLS. They're more of an MLS itself, selling leads to agents. And then you have EXP and Keller sitting on the sidelines that I think I would, if I were their M&A advisors, I would be talking to them about merging. And then you have a bunch of regional brands. So let's talk about the regional brands.
Yeah.
And that includes 8Z, that includes Mile High Modern, and that includes us, although we are a tiny little shop compared to the others. 8Z has a couple hundred agents. I don't know how many Mile High has.
30 plus, I think.
Yeah, and they in some ways, Mile High Modern is boutique luxury with this kind of we're the coolest houses in town pitch, which is it's a sexy website.
Lowercase. Yeah.
Our pitch is we help people make smart real estate decisions. We educate, we advise. Very different. 8Z originally they were just going to have a couple of agents in each of the 8s, and I think Lane, who founded the Brokerage, and was a student of Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, has done a great job building a regional brand, right? Their agents are very loyal. We've had conversations with them about possibly joining in House Einstein, and they seem to be pretty darn happy at 8Z. So, whatever they're doing to pitch their agents, they seem to be. It seems to be working, but it's obviously much smaller than these big brands. And then of course there's the agency. And the agency is this spin-off of...
Born out of TV, almost. Like.
Oh, yeah. Right? Yeah. Whatever that California Market was, that was a Netflix show.
Beverly's, no. Yeah.
It appeals to people that want that sizzle and that splash. And they've got some very competent agents on the team. There's 2 in town I know very well, both of which are great agents. But the branding from the consumer side is, okay, it's like a Hollywood brand, right?
Yeah.
Right, it's all sizzle. But if you know the agent delivers, which some of them I know do, then go for it, right? Again, the consumer doesn't choose brand first; they choose agent first. But that's the brand positioning of the agency.
And in a roundabout way too, right? If you're an agent and you say you're on the agency is typically like high end. Well, your good friend who wants you as an agent has an entry level or a mid level. I have a feeling that agent that works for the agency is going to be pretty apprehensive about sticking their sign in that yard if they're a very high end brand.
Right, they're not. They
where
should
it kind
say
of
no.
creates that mismatch. Yeah,
I mean they really should say no if they don't. If it's not a high end property that they've been asked to market. And it's possible, we don't know this for a fact, but if you really were creating a ultra luxury brand, you have to have standards that listings have to meet. And that's the easiest standard is if it's not at least $1 million, we're not interested in listing it. Which works for certain types of agents, but the majority of agents aren't even closing one deal. So that's why you're not going to see. I don't think the agency is going to become a household brand the way Compass has become a household brand. They can't. They're very fixated on a certain price point, and the same you could argue is true for Sotheby's and Christie's. They too shouldn't be taking lower end or even mid market listings because it dilutes their brand.
Yeah. Interesting to think about. I guess that kind of gives Compass its edges, right? If it's going to keep certain higher end under its umbrella, although it's becoming that Walmart of the brokerages. Like it still has its kind of its Acura or its Lincoln variants.
Oh yeah. You could have Lexus versus Toyota. They could choose to do that, right? Mm-hmm. I think the take home for all of this conversation is that buyers and sellers need to be really careful who they choose to work with. And the brand name they wear on their jersey has almost no relationship with their professionalism and the reach of your listing. You could pretend that like Compass's private exclusives or any of these brokerages' websites result in better distribution, but I would ask them to show you the proof. And if the proof is, hey, it's just our brokerage that is number 1 in Boulder, which is what Remax used to do all the time. We're number 1 in Boulder. Well, that's because you had the most agents in Boulder, right? Yeah. It's not because this brokerage is doing a better job. They just had the most agents. Why did they have the most agents? Because they offered the best deal to agents.
And number one is ambiguous enough as well. Like, number one what?
Oh, number one what? Exactly. Well, sometimes they'll show, I remember the office making sales volume charts and showing us that Boulder, that Remax was number one. But then there would be no differentiation between Remax Horizons, Remax Alliance, Remax of Boulder, all of which are independent franchisees. So which brokerage is really Remax? But the charts would say Remax is number one. So there's a lot of deception in marketing of real estate services. And that was one of the first ones I noticed in our local market. And that was when I was a Remax agent. And they would hand me this marketing material and be like, our office is definitely not number one. Our office at the time was in Broomfield. Okay. Yeah, so there's no way our office was number one, but the chart sure said Remax is number one in Boulder. And the same thing is true for Compass. Compass is number one in Boulder because they have the most agents. It's really a simple math problem. Yeah. But you have to ask what your agent does for you specifically. Who are you working with? Are you working with the agent you're hiring or one of their underlings? What are their systems? And how do they help you achieve your goals? And interview several. And go with the people that you feel most confident with, but don't go with a brand because it's almost meaningless.
And I'd say, for some reason, if you've listened to all of this and you're still like, I'm thinking about brands and brokerages before the agent. And granted, right, there's some bias here, but I see more value in local brokerages. I think when you stick to something regional or smaller, you get this kind of nimbleness in the market and also genuine local knowledge that you miss out with the larger brands. Like, yes, you have the agent, but these brokerages, the smaller ones, are kind of born from the area. And I think they're kind of more grounded in that sense too. Like, Creditwords do it quite like 8Z and their kind of marketing, you know?
Yeah, they've got great marketing. And we have many colleagues we like working with at 8Z. But I'm going to disagree that the brand necessitates or is an indicator of local depth of knowledge.
Because it's down to the agent.
Instead, the way it works is you meet an agent, you're friends with an agent, your partner's friends with an agent's partner, whatever. Like it's somebody on your PTA or somebody that coaches your little league team. And
father-in-law's sister's
you've gotten to know
wife.
them. You find out they're an agent. Coincidentally. And then they start pushing you to use them, and you're like, okay, well, what brokerage are you with? Oh, you're with Compass. Of course. Compass has the most signs in town, so you must be competent if you're with Compass, or you must be competent back in the day because you're with Remax. And so it ends up being social proof. The brand functions like confirmation that this person's acceptable to use because they're with a well-known brokerage. It's not necessarily true. And even if they do a lot of deals, it's not necessarily true that they're actually really good at this. There's an agent I've done so many deals with who is a real tough negotiator, but then she negotiates just as tough with her own clients. Like, she hammers them in to deals. And I love negotiating with her because even though she'll hang up the phone on me in an angry fit.
Okay, now I know who. I was going to ask to cut the podcast just to hear.
She will slam the phone on me. She will then push her clients to accept what we proposed, and I love that. I'm like, that's great. You can hang out with me all day long. And her brand is well known, but has nothing to do with her business model. It's just she caps out in 5 minutes. She does so much volume, like it's irrelevant. I think she just the switching cost is probably the annoying part. You know, for her, she has an insane amount of marketing tied up with this particular brand.
At her size, I wonder. I mean, I'd be looking at like retirement, given the volume and everything. But love of the game.
Yeah. So AI says the biggest fault line is between Compass Private Exclusives and Zillow Previews, and I don't disagree. Zillow Previews is they're supposed to be their luxury brand. At the end of the day, focus on the agent and do your due diligence on the actual services they provide and the ethics and integrity that underlie their professionalism or lack thereof, and you'll be much happier. And if you do choose an agent that is attracted to a discount brand, right, an agent that's chosen EXP or Real, I would take it with a little grain of salt that that they have themselves chosen a discount provider of services. And if they're marketing luxury, but they've chosen a discount provider, there's like a mismatch here, right? That's the
Yeah.
part that's a little bit odd because you've chosen somebody to market your really high-end home, and that agent has chosen a business model provider that says, hey, I will take 85-15, capping out at 12. Like that. And there's a bunch of other brands like that that are even, I'm going to say it, cheaper, right? There's the Home
Yeah.
Smarts and the Homestead Real Estates of the world.
And those you can see in their branding. No shade, but shade. You know?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's insane that those there's others too that are as like there's a whole waterfall or long tail of really cheap brokerages out there that grew and have a bunch of agents because they have the smallest splits in the business. And if you choose that agent, just know that you chose somebody that I would say it's an indicator that they are not
And of
They-
course
maybe
there's
they-
exceptions. But
I'll
like
give-
as a general rule, right? Yeah.
I will give Keller some props because they do a good job with education, right? They will take new agents. We will not, 100%.
And their I guess their systems for incentivizing new agents get recruited and become successful is great because it puts the onus, you know, it's almost like this cone shape. It's like three-dimensional.
Yeah, something, kind of a pyramid. Is it a pyramid shape? Is what you might be describing?
Something
Amy?
similar to that.
But look,
yeah.
it made Gary
I don't
Keller
know.
a billionaire. It was really good for Gary. Is it really
Yeah.
good for you as a consumer? I don't know. Maybe there are actually. I know a great Keller
Yeah.
agent. She's a
few.
friend of mine. I don't mean any disrespect to her. I know a great EXP agent, also a friend of mine, and they themselves they could tell you that this branding is not why they initially ended up with. It's probably the education for Keller, and it almost certainly is the discount with EXP for why the colleague we know that is at EXP, right? It's that cap.
I've got a friend, she's very green. I think this is her second year in real estate now. But I follow her on social media and all that, and she's constantly at these Keller Williams. The most recent one was like, it had a cringy title. It was something about like overcoming objection sales techniques or something, and it seemed a little bit pushy. But yeah, she's always at these sales event or these seminars and things that Keller Williams is putting on.
And that's how she's
Yeah.
learning, although she's learning in an extremely salesy, rah-rah environment, right? That is lacking
Glenn Gary,
independence,
Glenn Ross.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lacking. It's super salesy. We're the best, and of course, everyone's wearing that brand, and so you get super pumped like a church revival. That's great.
Super.
I'm happy for those people that get pumped. We need community, but again, the take home is it's the agent first. I'm looking at all the names of these brokerages, right? And at the majority of them, I know at least one very competent agent. So it is not the brand they're wearing that makes the competency or their hard work, right? Their effort. It is, you have to unfortunately evaluate that on a case by case basis with each and every agent.
Yeah. Okay. We're wrapping up about an exact hour on this closing table. Is the table closed?
That's enough. I think we should close
All
the
right.
table. All right, let's talk about Tales from the Trenches. And this is a salacious story.
So-
I feel like I may have talked about this story before. And on the back of Choose Your Agent Carefully, I feel like this story is particularly appropriate. Hamish, you're about to say something.
Yeah, I've been like kind of racking my brain on how we were gonna like merge it with the other one, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I guess a few things to begin with. Like, this agent was fairly competent. Osmond, you worked with them.
I never
Like-
did a deal with her. I never
okay.
did a deal with this agent, but she owned a boutique brokerage and had like 5 or 6 agents beneath her. And she was the employing broker with supervisory responsibilities. All of that sounds great. And she was
should be.
She was very bubbly and very friendly, and the brand name looked pretty cool. And I'm not going to say more because I don't want to identify her, but I will say she hasn't been in the business for a number of years, and her downfall was because she was violating. Well, it started with a violation of association rules at a condo she owned. She was short-term renting it, and one of the neighbors complained to the real estate commission, and the real estate commission investigated and found out that, yes, she was knowingly violating her association rules, and they fined her heavily. And the reason they fined her heavily, and I asked her about that because I was shocked at the time. I'm like, really? You got fined? How does the
real estate commission? Yeah.
How does the real estate commission have any business enforcing association rules? And she said to me, the real estate commission holds agents to a higher standard, and it was real estate related, higher standard than the public. And because you have a license, we can fine you for violating your, and it was thousands of dollars she paid to in that fine. And then fast forward a few more years later, and she was caught. What's that Italian language?
I don't know.
Flagrante delicto. There's a word there. She had hooked up allegedly. And this came from her directly, okay? So I don't know how alleged this is when she's telling me the story.
But for the sake of like tact, I guess. Yeah.
But she hooked up with her client at a listing that was not her listing or the client's listing in a hot tub. And the hot tub happened to have a security camera that they didn't see. And so they had some intimacy on camera in a hot tub at a showing. And it's not the first time that's happened. There's been public news of other agents that have been busted by cameras having affairs.
Kind of a story. It's kind of the stereotype almost.
A listing. Yeah. So the commission didn't just fine her. They told her that she needed to hire somebody else to supervise these agents. She was not allowed to supervise anymore. She also, of course, had to go get remedial education, right, to take the broker course again and all this other stuff. But in addition to that, they were not going to let her supervise. And that basically killed the brokerage because the brokerage wasn't generating enough money to justify hiring somebody who actually could supervise, has an employing broker license like I have. And so there wasn't enough meat on the bone for anybody else to do the job. And the last time I talked to her, she was asking me about how to sell the brokerage and the value of the brokerage because of its name. And I think she was fishing to see if I was interested in buying it. And I told her point blank that it's got a cool name. You've got the website. I don't think it was even trademarked, but it's not worth much to me. The only way I would purchase this business was as a multiple of its earnings. So I'd have to see the
similar to
tax
the
returns.
Real Remax.
Right.
Yeah.
And Real is paying 7 times earnings for a very large public named like brand, right? They're buying the brand and a really strong probability of making money on this thing. Mm-hmm. I would probably pay 2 times earnings, right? Because there's a really good chance
much quicker payback
that the 6 agents that are on this in this little brokerage are all going to jump ship when I buy it, right? Because they may not want to be part of House Einstein, and the brand did not have any value to me. So she wasn't happy to hear that. But that was
not to mention like value alignment too. Like I don't necessarily know if that little brokerage jived with us.
There were some aspects of its name, and again, I don't want to identify it because this is a salacious story about somebody, and they're not here to defend themselves. There was some alignment in there was marginal alignment, but it wasn't enough for me to abandon House Einstein.
Compelling, right? Yeah.
So our brand is about helping people make smart decisions, and this brand was about something completely different.
Enough said.
And so the last I heard, and I can confirm this, the last I heard is that she had some addiction issues, which should not surprise you, with impulse control issues that go with that, and was experiencing homelessness. And I say that with a lot of compassion, right? This is somebody who went from a very successful agent owning their own brokerage to being homeless within a decade. And gives you kind of a sense in some ways of the Wild West of real estate, the appeal. And I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday who is a friend of mine, was asking about leaving her career to become a real estate agent. And I told her point blank, well, I think it's a great profession, but 70 to 80% of the people that try fail. The statistics are clear. And the majority of agents last year didn't even do 1 deal. But the agents that are successful do a lot of deals. And they may have a great living, but it's not easy. It's really hard work to break into that. It's 3 years minimum for most people. I did share with her the story of an agent that had a number of children in the school system and launched really strongly. But that's because she had a great network here that she had built over almost 30 years, right? That's why she was able to launch so strongly. And this particular person was coming to our community new. And I said, it's going to be hard. And I told her my own story. Like, I thought it was going to be easy, and boy, was I wrong. It took years to build up a sustainable business practice, despite nights and weekends constantly blogging and marketing and growing the business. It took a really long time for it to be sustainable. And once it was sustainable, it still takes a lot of work. And like Pavlov's dog,
and like
right?
recapturing all this. Yeah.
Like, we literally got a lead 5 minutes before the podcast launched, and I paused the podcast because I'm like, 15-minute response time. We need to get on this. Like, the only person who's going to respond to this right now is me, so I'm jumping on this to respond because we spend so much time marketing and building business development practices that to miss the lead is absurd, right? So it's so hard, this business, and so I explained that to her, and so the take home from this Tales from the Trenches, it's the same take home. Vet your agent really well. Ask for examples of the services they provide. Ask for what the marketing budget is if you want. Ask what are they paying for, right? Like, we just paid thousands of dollars to stage a house in Louisville. Upfront, real costs, no smoke and mirrors. Upfront, out of my pocket, whether or not this house sells, that's what I just paid. Like, we're spending thousands of dollars in marketing, the videography, the photography, the efforts that you put in, telling the story of each listing, and we can demonstrate not just MLS distribution, but distribution on multiple platforms. And that is really beneficial to a seller who wants to know what we're actually doing and what they're actually paying for. But don't forget about those ethics and integrity, because it's really this appeal, like this like imaginary idea that you can work 3 months of the year, do 4 or 5 deals, and party the rest of the time, attracts a lot of people to this business. And most of them don't succeed, but they will try to fool you into thinking they really know what they're doing. And they will wear a brand that looks like they know what they're doing too. And just be cautious in who you choose.
Just on that tail end, I think a lot of like independent contractors, sales, the kind of industry similar, there's sharks. And there are, I think, kind of hand in hand with sharks is kind of like this innate risk-taking personality. And success can really show the true colors. And when you start to do really well, it can get really tempting, I think, to ride your coattails and start partying. And you lose sight of what got you there in the first place. And you can, the mighty fall. I worked for a brokerage, a very small one, when I was in high school. I had this internship there, and they were sharks. They were very deceptive in how they recruited agents, and ended up getting, I think, a lot of agents' commissions, like 90% of the split, many times, and months of free labor out of these agents.
90%.
Yeah. I kid you not. And I don't think their waterfall actually ever changed from that. And their whole value proposition was that they provided leads. And you would only ever collect 10% of the commission, but you would just be drowning in leads that it wouldn't even matter. Quantity has a quality of its own type of sell. But they're out there. And I think success breeds kind of the rock star lifestyle, and you can lose sight. So I don't know necessarily where I was going on that, but I felt like it was somewhat relevant to the whole conversation.
The part that's I find frustrating is it's so hard for the consumer to suss out who's good and who's not.
Sift through it.
I'm a big believer in the full body yes, the Oprah Winfrey full body yes, but don't fall prey to sales tactics, right? I just had a great conversation with a prospective client, and we're starting the process of working together. There's no obligation at this point, but she's also interviewing other agents, which I think is a great idea. And she shared this story of meeting this agent, and she said that throughout the interview, he talked about how excited he was to get the listing. 4 times he mentioned how excited he was. And I just, hearing the story,
to get the listing or to work with her,
to get the listing, to list the house. He's excited about the listing. And I'm like, I'm excited too, but I'm also a realist. It takes a lot of work to get a listing prepared and to market, and we put a lot of effort and time into doing it. And yes, it's exciting to list that home, but it also takes a lot of work. And what I laugh because I'm like, of course I would want to work with the person who's all sunshine and rainbows too, and not the person who says, "Oh yeah, I'd love the listing, but it's a lot of work," right? Like there's a realism, right? Like I'm always excited to work with people that choose us, right? I feel very honored by that.
It's an honored feeling.
I'm excited at solving the problem, the real estate challenge, and doing it in a way with integrity and ethics, and hopefully blowing the cover off the ball in terms of the net return to our client, whether it's the best house for a great price or it's getting their house sold for more money with less hassle. That's a win, but it's not easy, and it isn't just Pollyanna-ish excitement. It's good work. It's doing the good work that's the exciting part or the joyful part, but it's still work.
Hands down, through and through. Yeah.
Okay, Hamish, let's move on because we need to get through market conditions.
Timing wise, let's
we
get trucking.
May have to cut back. We're gonna do the best we can. Okay, there are two things I want to talk about with this market update. The first is overall market conditions, but particularly at certain price points. And I think what is most useful to buyers is to actually focus in on homes for sale. The total number of houses that are available, detached, single-family houses, by price range, and how that statistic has changed over the course of the last 12 months. So the most current data is still March, even though this is the end of April. So take that with a grain of salt. If you're our client, we're going to look at data relative to your specific search or property type. But for purposes of this podcast, we're looking at Boulder County single-family detached houses, and we're looking at all price ranges. We're looking at under $1 million. We're looking at $1 million to $2 to $3, and $3+. Okay, got that? Okay. So all price ranges. There were 699 single-family houses on the market last month, and that is a decrease of 0.7%. Now, when you look at the $1 million or less category, there's an increase of 8.7%. When you look at the $1 to $2 million category, the available listings in the county have dropped 20% year over year. This is year over year change. And when we look at what's that?
20%, 1 in 5.
I mean, that's a huge drop. 21%, 20.9%, 21% homes for sale have dropped. The $2 to $3 million range, there's been an increase of 2.2%. And then when you look at $3 million or more, it's an increase of 20%. So which price range do you want to be shopping in? Well, if you have the budget, be shopping in the $3 million plus range, because as we've talked about repeatedly, the market is full of inventory. And that $2 to $3 million range is just a slight increase in inventory. But that $1 to $2 million range, where most of our clients shop, they're getting pummeled with a 21% decrease of available inventory. And then under $1 million, weirdly enough, there's been a pop, 8.7%. And that's countywide. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
That's the whole of Boulder County.
That's the L's, like Louisville, Lafayette, Longmont, Boulder, Superior, Lyons. That's
okay. So that's a little not Superior. Superior is its own county. No, wait.
Oh.
No, Superior is part of. No, I'm thinking about Broomfield.
Broomfield's its own,
its own county. Superior, I think, is part. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at. Now,
when I think of Boulder County, I think of like El Dorado Canyon more than anything, which makes no sense. But
it makes no sense, Hamish. That's just your childhood.
The mind
with the actual reality of how our municipality is sliced and diced. I did this $5 million plus analysis. Oh, there it is. 12 months. Okay. Last 12 months, $5 million plus sales. How many have there been? Let me make sure I have these dates right, because is this an old analysis? I feel like I need to do it over again just to make sure. Let me do it over again, because I don't know if this old cart or current cart. All right, bear with me, people. This is literally how quick it is. $5 million plus. And first thing we look at is what's the active inventory. And this is just Boulder County. And just detached single-family houses. Total number of houses on the market, 57. How many sold in the last 12 months, Hamish?
25.
Survey says 17. So 17 houses in the last 12 months, 57 total. So you're looking at 3 years of inventory. Pretty much, right? That's how much inventory is on the market above $5 million. And when you actually look at those 17 that sold, let me make sure there's no dupes, because sometimes there are duplicates. Nope, there are no duplicates. That's accurate as I scan through it quickly. Because the 2 MLSs you get, sometimes re-Colorado listings will not have been cleared out, but these have all been cleared out. So how many do you think sold for more than list? Let's do the math. And you can just
of those 17.
Let's just tally them. Let me just flip through them. Of $5 million plus sales. This excludes 700 Highland, by the way, because the data is not on the MLS. So you Compass agents are not giving us the data, but it is what it is. Okay. So 2656 4th Street sold for less. 2828 Street sold for less.
I feel like all of them would be selling for less, bar like
not
2,
necessarily.
right?
No, okay, let me just see how many. We'll just skip through it really fast.
I guess it's how many sold for more would be.
Yeah, that's what I mean. How many sold for more?
Oh, yeah.
The answer is...
Like 2?
None of them. A couple of them sold for their last list, but none of them sold for more than list. Oh, no, one of them. 1650 Wilson is the only one of these 17 that exceeded the list price. It was listed at $5,250,000. It sold for $5,355,000. That was last October. And it was an agent that conveniently double-ended. And I'm going to say that, you always have to ask what sort of representation you're getting when the buyer's agent and the seller's agent, there's one agent on a $5 million deal. That's something that raises eyebrows, to say the least. So
good day for the agent.
We could also do the median negotiated discount, but I'm going to let this go because of interest of time. But if you are a client or a prospective client and you want us to do a live analysis of whatever price range you're actually shopping in or thinking about selling your home into, no obligation. Our sign-up information's online, or you could just call me and we'll schedule an appointment. I only ask that you're not in an exclusive agreement with somebody that you can't get out of, because the only reason I'm doing that with you is in the interest of building trust and hopefully building a relationship with you to show you the value we add day one without obligation to use us. But I don't want to do it if you're married to somebody else already, like your cousin's your realtor, and you just want to use. I have somebody like that. He's a friend, and he finally just said, Osmond, I really like your info, but I have to use my cousin. I'm like, okay, well, stop calling me for info. I love you, buddy. But I'm not going to be that guy that just gives you free info forever while you pay your cousin. Like, your cousin should be paying me.
Yeah, ask it from your cousin, and maybe your cousin will get the skills. But yeah,
I mean, I could do inventory. I think what I was going to do for this analysis, Hamish, was also inventory from a year ago for these other markets, and it really wouldn't take that long. So we'll just do it really fast.
Yeah, you can rip through it. I'm thinking I'll probably cut this as well and make it a standalone on YouTube.
Okay, great. Inventory in Louisville, 37 houses on the market last month, 5.1% below a year ago, and that's all price ranges. Lafayette, Colorado, how are we looking? Lafayette, survey says 21.3% fewer homes last month than a year ago, only 48 houses on the market. How about Longmont? Longmont, 214 houses on the market, up 10.3% from a year ago. And we're seeing that. There's a lot of inventory. We have got a great listing in Longmont, and it's had competition. It's one of the reasons we do an analysis of the competition regularly and see how we're shaping up. And we've now cut that price pretty aggressively to keep it in line with the competition.
Now. Yeah.
It's definitely competitive now, but it's still slow going because Longmont has a lot of inventory. And then let's do City of Boulder. Not just Boulder County. City of Boulder has 295 single-family houses for sale. That's a lot.
295? Dang.
Yeah, that's almost 100 more than Longmont for a similar-sized city. And keep in mind, a lot of Boulder is CU. So Boulder has a lot of inventory for sale. 3.9% more than a year ago, 295 houses. Last year, inventory in Boulder peaked at 416. In June. So May had 414, June had 416. So we're well below last year's peak. But
single family or attached?
Single family, detached.
Okay, yeah.
And when we look at active inventory, let me just do that really quick. All price ranges in the city of Boulder. This is tricky because Mail City is confusing. Mail City sometimes is Boulder County. So I'm going to do my personal shape of the city of Boulder, which I think is more accurate for what most people think of Boulder. I call it Boulder proper in my little
colloquial
search
Boulder
map. And in Boulder proper, detached single-family houses currently available. There are 202 that are not under contract, and with under contracts, 277. So inventory is not spiked up massively yet, but we have another 2 months, right? So May and June should be peak inventory if you're shopping. That means more selection, and this year, depending on price range, it might mean more ability to negotiate a better deal.
Especially on the higher end. I mean, the higher end is just kind of getting dogged on, getting not fleeced, but yeah, there's
prices have come
not a lot of movement there.
They have come way down. We are currently in the beginning phases of negotiation on a listing. We represent the buyers. We've gone through the comps back and forth twice. Hamish, you haven't seen all the conversations because they keep dropping you from the CCs, but
love that. This is the one you've got showings tomorrow?
No, it's not.
Oh.
We may go see it again. I think they should. But basically, the seller's trying to get what they paid for it 5 years ago plus all the money they put into it. So they bought it roughly at the peak of the market, and the comps are basically $100,000 below what they've got it listed for. And I'm not going to mention the address because it's an active listing, but we're back and forth with a listing agent and back and forth with my buyer. They like the house, but they're not going to pay over market for it. $100,000. It's not worth $100,000 more than market. And there's a really good argument for $100,000 below the list price. So,
wow, yeah, the seller might have to. What is it? Reality check, wake up call.
Well,
we'll
it's
see.
It's time. But I think we may offer just to get that conversation going. But the problem with offering, is that we also anchor. We're anchoring it to this low number that they're probably going to say take a hike when we submit the offer. But at the end of the day, that's really fair value. But that if somebody else offers slightly more, it's going to feel like they offered a lot more. And we might end up, just creating the negotiation runway for the next buyer. And that's sort of annoying to do. It's a bunch of work. But at the end of the day, you can't buy a house without writing an offer.
You've got a good point. The rest, I think, is off air. So carrying
the rest
on
is off
here.
air. So let's go on to sales of the week. All right, 303 Skylark Way, Boulder, sold April 27th for $2.8 million. It is a 4,000-ish square foot, 2-story house with about 1.5 acres of land. And it was listed without any water rights disclosed, at least on the MLS. I don't know if it's in the description. So the reason I chose this one is that we have a buyer who we've started working with that's in the market for a ranch-style property, preferably with a horse barn and some pastures in reasonable proximity to Boulder. And this one it kind of feels like that. It doesn't have the horsey stuff, but it's a cool house. I love the wooden ceilings. It had been on the market a while. It originally listed at 3.2, like another one of these stories, right? Oh, I'm sorry. No, strike that. They originally listed it at 3.6 in May of 2023. Nothing happened. They withdrew it, dropped the price to 3.2, dropped the price again. Wow. This is now we're into 2025. They're sliding down to $3 million. Then $2,970,000, then $2,945,000, then $2,849,000, and finally they landed, after playing prices right, they landed at $2,808,400, a very specific number from the cash buyer. Okay. It's a cool house. It's really close to Boulder. You have this open space, magical views to the west, which you could see in a lot of the windows. Right? This is something that every morning you're going to wake up and see pastures and open space. Due diligence demands you check the conservation easements and make sure that isn't going to turn into a future development. But I think this was actually pretty well bought at about $50,000 below list, $40,000 below list, $2,800,000. Yeah, Survivor, right? Listed with the agency. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Really quick, I know time. It's not. Go ahead. Is this an expanded ranch or a popped 2-story? Was it original like this? What do you think, looking at it? Because it's funky, but it almost looks like it's built off of like a, like maybe a Martin Acres ranch or something.
I mean, the original structure is a 60s era house, and then it looks pretty clearly like it has an addition in the back. So it's going to have multiple time, indications of multiple generations of housing design. Yeah. And that can feel a little disjointed, right? The 60s and 70s had low ceilings, but clearly that big addition in the back is not a 60s era thing. So one of the large entertaining areas, it's it sort of looks like a cock-angled box with they've shoved on the back. Which I grew up in a house like that. Okay, my parents bought a house that's from the 70s, and then in the 90s they did a 2-story addition as a whole wing, and it completely changed the house. So you could feel it, right? Like there's one section of the house that has weird wood paneling, and there's another section of the house that has killer views. And so that, I think the real value here is the land, the protected views, and the square footage. The overall design is not particularly cohesive, but I haven't been in this house personally, so I don't want to judge it aggressively as saying that without having actually seen it or without there being something really obvious about it. But the take home is just, boy, this took a long time to sell. The listing agent was Coldwell. The buy-side agent, I could mention the brokerages, right? The agency, since this podcast was all about brokerages. Okay. Yeah. Next.
New build. 827 Trail Ridge Drive.
Yeah.
Sorry.
New build because it burned. And this is a Marshall Fire rebuild. They're marketing Wood Brothers homes. I don't know if that means much. It doesn't mean much to me, and I've been in the industry 22 years.
Yeah.
So it looks like a really lovely custom home that was completed this year, and they had originally started marketing this pre-construction. They bought the land for $480,000. They closed in June of 2024, and in February of this year, they put it on the market for $2,707,000. Cut it after 3 weeks to 2.6, and then it went under contract, but that first buyer said no, took a hike. They cut the price again to 2.5, and then eventually it went under contract again April 14th and closed on the 24th, which is a very fast closing for 2.4. And cash deal, decent discount to list. We have a Remax of Boulder listing and an 8Z buyer's agent. So these rebuilds are fantastic, right? They're modern homes, completely new construction.
And modern functionality, right? Yeah.
And Louisville is such a spectacular downtown with none of the student issues. This one's really close to the Leon Worrell Wildlife Sanctuary, which is just a big reservoir, and then you could cross over into Davidson Mesa in just a few minutes. And Davidson Mesa, when it's not windy, is spectacularly beautiful. Like features jaw-dropping views. So this is nicely situated and a brand new house, and they had to have it and move in fast because they closed really fast on this thing. But I think it's worth looking at the photos, Hamish, for the design. I'm not crazy about the fake sunsets in the windows, but overall it's like super tall ceilings, exposed wood beam.
The large windows, love seeing those. I'll say, like, criticism is that these rebuilds are a lot of home, little lot. And, in a lot of the photos, you can see just how close you are to the neighbor. Yeah. While you have large windows, you have limited privacy. It
100%
gives Newlands. And I got a shout out because I worked there, but it is walking distance to the Louisville Rec Center, which had its renovation like 2019.
Were you saying gives Newlands vibes? Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's not a lot of privacy.
Backyard. Yeah.
But I think the finishes of this home and the design of the home were all super well chosen. And even from a marketing perspective, the only thing I hate is the fake sunsets. Right? Like everybody in the neighborhood has fake glowing windows, and then you've got fake sunsets, and it just makes my stomach turn. Like it just looks cartoonish. Yeah. And I think agents just need to stop with the fake sunsets. But I get it. Like at least one dusk photo. But the bathroom photo with the fake sunset is just like, come on.
Yeah, I'd limit it to like one, right? And then either like real twilight or don't do it.
The first shot, okay? I don't want to use this term, but I'm just going to use it. The money shot, all right? The one that's like the first shot, the curb appeal shot. That should, if you want to use some AI trickery to make the windows glow or put in a fake sunset, awesome, you could do that. That will attract more attention. But after that, it just gets to be a bit much and looks a little cheesy. So it looks like the sod is all dead in the backyard, but maybe it'll come back. I think it's a great house. Certainly, I would.
Yeah, I'm with you.
The privacy issue, I think, is legit and a good thing to point out, Hamish.
Okay, I mean, I could keep going, but I think we're good. Next one. Yeah.
797 Aspen Way. Sold for 1.776 or 1776. These are patriots that bought this house.
Good
listed
year.
at 1.695. Also a 4,000-ish square foot house, 2-story, 5-bedroom, 4-bath, only a 2-car garage. And, we've been shopping in this range. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised this one went for all 80,000 over list. And the agent double-ended. And when I look at the house, like the exterior looks like it's ready to be lit on fire with a match, right? It looks like it's dry wood.
Yeah.
And the interior looks fine, but is not blowing me away.
Fine is the word for it. Yeah.
It meets the standard, and it looks
The
a lot
carpet,
like
yeah.
the $1.5 and $1.6 million listings that we've been looking at in Louisville since January. It doesn't look like, all right, so the master bath, it's got the IKEA, sinks and the herringbone tile, but I think the list price was right. So the list price of 1.7 was probably even pushing it a little bit. Like the bathrooms in the lower level are dated. And again, the exterior, okay, it's got a hot tub, but the exterior doesn't scream you should be all over this. And maybe it's the detached garage that convinced somebody to go guns blazing. You've got that 2-car detached in the back. But I don't even. It's an 11,000 square foot lot
near the open space. A little bit.
I'll be honest. I'm totally puzzled by this list price, having seen all of the comps all year. This one, I mean, you're across from open space in the trail. Maybe that's the selling point.
Yeah, I think.
But you're also practically backing up to Bella Vista's right there. Oh, you're not backing up to it. There's a house in between but still.
The closeness to that community park, Louisville Community Park, is pretty solid. I don't know, maybe they're local, but there's all sorts of stuff that happens at that community park.
That's
so
true.
Maybe they just understand the value super closely and it's really meaningful to them.
That's true. And look, on a Sunday, you could go wander into downtown and get a newspaper and a cup of coffee. And when the train goes in, you could literally catch the train. So maybe there are selling points that you could get your head around 1776. Well, that's another topic. But it's still surprising. I mean, it's a big lot.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I would have to get my head around it. Why did this one go for 100,000 more? And the agent double-ended, so good for them for collecting both sides of the deal and of course managing that conflict of interest so carefully. Okay, let's move on. I don't know what happened here. It's just great. It's a good house. It just surprises me, right? That it
shows
went
well.
for that much.
The oversized 2-car detached garage is cool. Anyhow.
All right, 1280 Berea Drive, and this is a 2-story on Berea in Table Mesa. Berea is a fantastic street. So is Albion. And when you know, right? There isn't a lot of traffic that comes through there. And you're steps away from the rec center and Veely Lake, and hopefully the rec center survives, but that's a whole nother topic. The house had been chopped up into 6 bedrooms, which it felt like a lot when I saw it. But a functional floor plan, right? Like the layout made sense. Really simple box-on-a-box design. And our client indicated an interest a little too late. Unfortunately, we missed the initial bidding war, but we did get in second place. There was a second round supposedly over the backup offer, and we ended up in first position for backup. So really second position, and the first buyer closed on it. They paid. Wow, I'll have to compare what our contract was for. I mean, I can look that up really fast, but I'm pretty sure the 1,400,000. Don't mention names, but the 1,425,000 is a lot more than our backup offer.
Do you want to know?
I think. Yeah, am I wrong?
We're 1,421.
Oh, so not that 4,000 difference. So basically the same offer price, right? But they did pay more than our backup. So this is why you don't trust memory. You got to look it up. Great house. Would have worked really well. There was some weirdness to it, like the grotto-like entrance to the back. And we strongly suspected there may be a permit issue with the kitchen, but don't know that for a fact. And it would have worked. It was a nice house in a great spot, and got a bidding war and sold for $55,000. Is that right? Yeah, $55,000 over list. Yeah.
So a couple interesting. First of all, props to the listing agent for when they include a artistic rendering, or more frequently we're seeing AI. They are very clearly labeling it. I think that's kind of the compromise between, because we've seen enough listings at this point where the landscaping will just be entirely redone with AI or something, and they make no note of it or any of that. But this is clearly done. And then Oz, you said this agent was doing an open house while the property was under contract.
Yeah.
Which I think, interesting.
The other thing that I think it was really interesting was our client also used AI to model different cosmetic treatments of the exterior. Because when I went and saw it with her, she pulled out her phone and she had a bunch of images that she had created with AI for what the house might look like if they did some cosmetic stuff on the outside. And I was actually really impressed with what AI was able to pull out. Mm-hmm. It did weird stuff like move the sidewalk in weird places, but you got the idea of what the house could look like.
Yep. And this one too, actually, this artistic rendering is totally AI because it moves and messes with the garage door in a weird way. But anyhow,
the last thing I'll mention is that there's another house on the street that's becoming available that we know about. And if you want the inside scoop, call me and let's work it out. Let's see if we can get you inside scoop of a house that might be hitting the market. Okay. All right. Next, 1627 17th Street, which supposedly was taken down to the studs, but the house was originally built in 1900, and it's in Goss Grove, which is a historic neighborhood, and it's super interesting because it's part of an association with 2 units, but it's a freestanding house. Like, it's such an oddball that I feel like it was worth talking about. And we actually sent this to clients and they declined, but I was very interested in checking this one out. Listed at 1.4 in February, closed at 1.33 on April 22nd. It's a Compass double end, 2 Compass agents, not the same agent. Tiny house, only 1,500 square feet. 3 bedroom, 3 bath. I guess that's tiny for this style of home. It's really funny that it's called brand new Victorian style home. I think this is brand new is a little much, but they did take it down to the studs supposedly, and it does look that way. So I look at this and it just screams Sundance cash cow. You're in the right neighborhood to be walkable to everything. The house is turnkey and beautiful. It could also have been a good granny flat, for some of our clients that have been hunting for that. It's not the only, but one of the big question marks would be the association, right? Like, how does it work when you have condo buildings that are part of the association? Like, this is going to require more due diligence to understand how the reserves and operating budget are split across all these different buildings that are very different. Anyway, it's now gone and no longer available, and it was available for a long time, but I think this is one of those examples of look outside the box and scratch around and you can find some very interesting properties. The flood zone would have been an issue with this property. It's in the 100-year high risk zone. But if the association dues are covering it,
those are so strange. Yeah,
I don't think they are. At $75 a month, I don't think the association is doing anything. Right? It's an association where you're subject to the rules, but you're not actually getting much of anything from the association.
I think it's misplaced, but I'm like kind of tempted to call this like a sleeper home and like sleeper cars. Sleeper car will typically be a non-attractive exterior, which doesn't apply in this case, but like the interior's completely redone, right? Or it's significantly upgraded from what it used to be, and this is that, I think, example of like a 1900s exterior with just completely modern inside. You know?
Yeah. In fact, I wish they didn't go that modern. You know, I'd like to see some old
Yeah.
faucets and like an apron sink from a farmhouse and
Some
old light
homages,
fixtures.
or like,
But
yeah.
instead, they just went with the cheapest new finishes they could find, which makes it, you know, it's all grayed out.
The bathroom lights are kind of neat. I'll give them that. But yeah, from a general standpoint, it's like you wouldn't even know it's a 1900s home when you're inside, which again works for some people. But I like to see a bit of character carried forward or something, a bit of design.
Same.
Yeah.
It's a little disappointing, the interior finish, but it is turnkey.
Super.
You know, for the end user that doesn't want to do anything and be right in the heart of downtown, this could have been a good fit. So, and I think a very fair price for what you're getting. The 1.3 is for this location,
for that location,
turnkey, and you have a garage. You know, that's one of the things that a lot of these houses don't have, and this has got a decent sized garage. So
it's okay. So that's probably what I'm seeing as part of the association, because the picture shows a 2-car garage. The listing says 1 car.
Yep.
So maybe that's your $70 a month for the garage building maintenance.
Well, maybe. Yeah, maybe you get one of the 2 spaces and you share the expense of maintaining the garage. It's unclear. But that's part of the due diligence that goes into the contract process, right? Like there's a time to get that documentation and figure out what you're actually getting for that $75. But what you're also getting is obligations that go way beyond $75. And that's why it's so important to understand associations and weird ones, okay, that have like 5 units need more due diligence than the big ones. The big ones are usually professionally managed and hopefully have been reserving. The tiny ones can have like little dictators in them and they could be complete nightmares. You really need to do your due diligence. All right.
I think one of our most listened podcasts is about that. It's the HOA podcast listeners, and it's about this one where the HOA like leader took over a storage unit.
The president.
It just wasn't even the president. Yeah.
The president of the HOA claimed a storage unit that was deeded to another unit. What a mess. 375 South 40th Street is a large ranch in Martin Acres. I believe this is the Martinique model, the original one of the original Martiniques, because they have the largest floor plan, the steps on the side. Typically they have a carport, and they're fantastic houses, full basement. And this particular one was listed at 1175, sold for that price, sold very quickly, right? Listed and sold at exactly the right price. Now you look at the photos, it's nicely tended to, but not particularly amazing. It meets the standard with a number of updates, windows, kitchen's been updated, it's clean, it's functional, and it's a lot of bedrooms and baths. So I hope it doesn't turn into a student rental, but it would not surprise me if it does, because this makes a lot of sense for students with a CU parent that wants to find junior something that is safe and clean and not subject to the slumlord, has a little kitchenette in the basement, like check, 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 check. Awesome house. And
I'm impressed they included the kitchenette pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's another topic. And this is now the going rate for a decent-sized ranch with a full basement that's been updated nicely and has not been a rental for a long time, or at least has been, all the deferred maintenance has been updated. It's turnkey. The only thing I thought was a little bit, you know, it's a little close to Table Mesa, but it's not that close. Like you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 houses in. Oh, yeah. You're going to hear the traffic down the street, okay? Because you're not quite on the bend. But it's not going to be horrible, and you're so close to... Unfortunately, there's no pass-through, so to get to Martin Park, you're going to have to either go to Table Mesa or all the way down to Martin Drive and around the block, but it's still...
That always gets me, yeah.
I mean, 39th Street is a better spot, and 38th Street is even better than that, but 40th Street's not bad. It's a good spot. I own a house 1 street over. This is a great spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, move on. Time. Go.
670 West Pine Street is our last sale of the week. And it is yet another listing that sold for more than the list price. It was listed at $1 million on March 27th, and it was only available for a few days before it went under contract as pending. It did not go under contract with backup solicitation. They said we're done, which means that they got a lot more than list, and that's true. 57,000 more than list, and a conventional fixed rate mortgage, small concession of a couple $1,000, probably on inspection. It's an 80s era 2-story. And this is a house that surprises me because it's a house I would have discouraged our clients from even looking at because it is right next to Via Appia. Like, you literally are looking at like 100 feet or so from your front door to a busy roadway that gets lots of traffic, particularly at rush hour. And
yeah,
you were saying?
I'm thinking, like, I was wanting to say, like, time will tell. Because they've done a huge, like, traffic reduction rework of Via Appia. Now it's only one lane each way, but it is still a major artery. But then we're seeing this house sell for what it did.
I mean, It's elevated over the neighbors. You get great views over the plains. The kitchen looks reasonably updated. The photos are so overexposed that it's sometimes hard to see any detail in them. So it blows out, like, the lower level bathroom is actually quite dated. It's like pink, and it makes it look white. Like, okay.
The black ceiling's a nice look, I guess.
Interesting. I mean, there's some interesting, not expensive updates, and I think the kitchen might be original with new countertops and new hardware. I don't necessarily think it's a brand new kitchen, but it looks good in the photos, and it was obviously priced right? $1 million. And they got 57,000 over list. Congrats to the listing agent. You're looking at a Mile High Modern listing and a Compass buyer. A reasonable size house with the right bedrooms and baths. That configuration of most of the bedrooms on the upper is what families want. And Louisville schools. It's just, I just really would have pushed my buyer not to take this one because of Via Appia.
Yeah.
But maybe, on site, maybe it wasn't that bad. I don't know.
Somebody took a spot healing brush or a mask or something to the garage door in the lead photo on Photoshop. Yeah, but I'm not really sure what that's about.
It looks pretty bad, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if they're trying to heal something or whatnot. I looked at it on Street View, and it looks about the same, just without the blurred marks and lines. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Made it through the approval process.
Just because you have Photoshop doesn't mean you know how to use it. And there's a question of, do you really want to, like, there's always this ethical line of how far do you push, editing the photo to the point where you're misrepresented the house. And that's a point.
I think that'll be a topic for us later on.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the end of Sales of the Week.
Yeah. And now it's over to shameless self-promotion, which it's so crazy how cohesive these podcasts are. It's almost like we plan them around a central theme and then build away from it. And
crazy.
There's like intention and thought behind these. But what's this?
It's almost like we meet ahead of time, a day or sometimes more, just to plan the podcast, Hamish, and talk about.
We're constantly thinking about it. Yeah. So.
House Einstein.
Our sponsor.
Our sponsor, Brokerage. Is a lovely community of 4. And it is a group of people that work incredibly close together. And after multiple years of trying to dial in our systems, we are now, I feel like, have hit peak efficiency in systems. And we now have openings for 1 or 2 at most agents, with the caveat that not every agent's a good fit, and it's difficult to share the news that we are open to agents joining us to actively be recruiting. At the same time, knowing that because of our selectiveness with who joins, there's a good chance that we may recruit you and then say no at the end of the finish line. And part of that is because I'm so protective of this culture that I give everyone a vote. And we don't add members to the team unless we feel strongly, it's that whole Oprah, whole body yes, that this is somebody who not just benefits from the company, but gives back to the company in a way that everyone feels really good about. And so that's a tough thing to balance, because I really would love to see some great agents join our team, add to the vibrancy of our team. I think we have space, and at the same time knowing that not everyone's going to make the gauntlet. And that is not anything personal. It's just that it has to be a really good fit because of how different we are, how much we prioritize service and commitment and integrity, and also, honestly, the community, the care for each other in this company is unlike any other company I've ever worked for. We're much more like a really close group of friends, and we're also much more like a law firm that shares certain key resources among top producing agents. So there's a threshold agents need to meet in terms of experience and production in order to even qualify, and most agents don't. So that's a very interesting puzzle, and I've never actively gone out and recruited this way, but I'm now in the recruitment phase. So if this resonates to you, and you haven't previously been part of a recruitment effort at House Einstein, please reach out and we can have a conversation. Just be prepared that the answer is no, and also be prepared that this is a multi-month process for onboarding and making sure it's a good fit before it's a yes. So it's something that likely would be end of the year for the transition if it's a win-win for everybody. And we're looking for those people that get it, that share our values and our ethics, and also want to give back to this community in a really powerful way.
For what it's worth, too, at our team meeting yesterday, one of our members, and there's 4, so I'm really anonymizing it, but really kind of wanted to express how they felt that they had everyone in their court, and that they're genuinely working with friends to better their own business. And I think that's a good kind of reflection of the culture that we have, is the perspective is so far removed from like a Shark Tank or a warring kind of leads at cutthroat business, that it is just really the interest of seeing everybody succeed. And it was cool to hear that, so I made a little note to include it in the pod too.
Yeah. Thanks, Hamish.
Little pat ourselves on the back thing, yeah.
And I'm sure some of you are wondering, what about the deal? What do the splits look like? And I will share with you
best you've ever seen.
They are very competitive for what you get, and the splits will not be the reason you or we have decided it's not a good fit. The splits are better than the majority of brokerages, with services that far exceed what the majority of brokerages provide, and support that far exceeds. Things that agents routinely pay for out of pocket are covered by our brokerage. So it is easy. And remember, I shared the story at the beginning of how annoyed I was with RE/MAX and their crazy billing. That is the reason it is so simple. Yeah. It is so simple that there's no confusion over this. Right? And you will not get a 13th month bill. You will not get a bunch of nonsense fees tacked on. And we also don't tack on those nonsense fees to our clients. So we don't have admin fee. Every time we have a closing, the title company's like, do you have an admin fee to stick your buyer with or seller with? We're like, no, we don't charge those nonsense BS fees that are just profit padding. And it just shocks me how many businesses operate with the nickel and dime mentality, not just for their agents, but to their clients. And that's just not how we roll.
Yep.
Okay, that's our shameless self-promotion segment. And boy, was it shameless, Hamish.
Yeah, I think it needed to be said.
Okay, in the news, we only are going to talk about one piece. And actually, Hamish, I think we're a little over 2 hours. So let's cover this somewhat superficially. Okay, not in a ton of detail. Maybe we should provide the link to Grok, which will give you a pretty good overview. But
yeah, we can do that.
The big picture is that Colorado is pushing to alleviate the housing crisis by massively increasing the supply of housing throughout the state and limiting the ability of local government to regulate things like lots. They're working on it. Things like lot sizes. And Boulder has been looking for exceptions to this, so they can continue to regulate lot sizes. But everyone, particularly here in the city of Boulder, I've covered this ad nauseum, are very much on board with allowing subdivision of much smaller lots than they've ever allowed, or at least have even considered allowing since probably the 1940s or 50s. And so we're talking about lots that could be 3,000 square feet or smaller. And that means people with a 6,000 square foot lot in Martin Acres could scrape that house, cut it in half, and subdivide and build 2 separate little houses, or they could build a duplex there. So there are all sorts of things that are going to change in the city. And these are 2 pieces of legislation at the state level that are moving that effort to solve the housing affordability and inventory crisis that has existed in our community. And they killed House Bill
1114. Yeah.
1.4 was postponed indefinitely, but 1308 is moving forward. And Hamish, do you want to describe 1308?
I was actually going to quickly recap 1114, which was, I think they're kind of complementary to each other. And so I'm interested in the implementation of 1308 without its counterpart. But 1114 was to kind of prohibit local governments from requiring lots larger than 2,000 square foot for single family homes. So more or less to kind of like, I don't have a good analogy, stave off local governments and regulations to allow the homeowner to split their lot as they see fit. And then 1308 is to further stave off local governments and regulations and kind of get this lot splitting into a streamlined process, more or less to avoid like public hearings and planning review, I believe, as well. It's totally an effort to like undermine local cities and municipalities, right? In favor for lot splitting.
I mean, I don't know if it's undermine is exactly the words I would use.
Yeah, undermines maybe a little bit. Yeah.
I just want to focus in on where the rubber meets the road here in Boulder, and the Boulder Valley Comp Plan comment period is over. It is almost certain that they're going to throw away all of the zoning, 19-something or 20-something zoning codes for residential housing in the city and get it down to 2. Neighborhood 1 and Neighborhood 2, both of which are going to allow much higher density development on lots. And this provision, 1308, says that if the county if a lot meets the criteria, then it must be approved without a discretionary public hearing. And the rules for 1308, which begin December 31st, 2027. So we're looking at, we're looking at
next year, essentially.
Yeah, 16 months away or whatever, 17 months away. No, more than that. 12 plus 7, 19 months away. The original lot needs to be at least 2,000 square feet. The new lot, neither of the new lots is smaller than 1,200. So now you're up to 2,400, right? Small new lot is at least 30% of the original lot area, amended from 40. So do the math on that, right? The smaller of the new lots has to be at least 30% of the original lot. The lot has not been split before. Residential use has been allowed in the past, and it's not part of an HOA. And yes, the local government can review for infrastructure needs, but that's about it. And yes, there could be setbacks, but all of this is going to change, right? Because if the existing setbacks are enforced with, the existing setbacks in current zoning are enforced, these lots are too small to be buildable. So 100% they're going to throw those away and put in something new. 100% they're going to be revisiting solar access. The writing's on the wall, and this is the reason this is in the news this week. Is I just want to continue. I want to continue to advise our clients as well as just general listeners that change is happening at a pace that I have never seen before in Colorado or in Boulder. And I think that we're likely going to see development that is very similar to a scale that hasn't occurred since the 50s or 60s. But it won't be whole neighborhoods like Martin Acres or Table Mesa being developed. It'll be within these neighborhoods. And so people that own large lots in particular have a huge change to the value of that lot. And a lot of these people don't realize it. And that we're starting to see some of these transactions of large lots with our belief that the seller doesn't know what they're selling. They don't know the gold that they're giving up. And in fact, if you're an investor, I'm not advising people to take advantage of other people, but there's a knowledge gap. And that knowledge gap is sellers that don't know what they got.
Yeah.
That meme.
And it can be advantageous.
that meme on Facebook or other places where, I know what I got is like the last thing. Don't lowball me. I know what I got. Well, this is lowball me. I have no idea what I got, and so things are going to change in the future.
Or I have it valued perfectly, but I am completely ignorant to the comp plan and future development. But that's, I think, and we're going to continue podcasting listeners for the longest foreseeable future, so we'll be talking about it as it's happening. But I'd like to put a little crystal ball, Oz, or maybe even a little speculation. As this begins to roll out, we're going to see increased attached residential and kind of higher density housing. I'm really curious to see which of those particular property types, where the value is going to land for those. Single family homes, these larger lots, I mean, even mine, it's like a 6,400 square foot lot that can be subdivided up now, technically. So I'm curious. I just want to see how the market dictates value. And then, of course, there's going to be a point too, right, where there's enough supply and demand's tapered off. Then what happens? And what a time to be alive.
The Mr. Market delivers what the market will bear. Developers are interested in maximum profit. So if they can sell a 400 square foot, micro house or apartment,
if it's selling
in a building of 8, okay, and they could make more money doing 400 square foot micro apartments, they will. My understanding is those have not been very well received, but I don't know if that's true or not. That's just word on the street. There have been a few of those developments downtown with really small apartments, and I don't know how successfully they've been leased or sold. But the market will bear what it will bear. So that means that developers are going to try to maximize their profit no matter what. They're going to interpret the rules to build out. They don't care about the neighborhood character. That's not their business.
At all. Yeah.
There's zero protection for neighborhood character. There's zero protection for views, other than things like height limits. All right, there are still height limits.
But then those.
But are you sure those are going to continue to exist with a runaway council that is as, quote, progressive as this council is when it comes to creating opportunities for developers to make a profit? Will there be a price reduction in attached dwellings? I think there might be. I've had this argument with a investor client of mine who owns a number of student rentals. He doesn't think CU's massive expansion at CU South and this coming development boom is going to have much of an impact on pricing. In theory, I think it should, when you increase supply that massively into a market that's already been soft, it should drop pricing. But there's also the whole move-up phenomenon, right? The renters that can afford it, that want to live in nicer digs, are going to do that, which is going to drop the value of some of these older places, the Class B and C, residential apartments. For a while, I used to really want to have condos in my portfolio, and now I don't. I would be very, very
with
hesitant
the writing on the wall
to buy more condos because it's a falling knife in some ways. It makes sense if you've got a student, right? If your son or daughter, your child is going to see you next year, that makes a lot of sense. Go buy something. You will probably do much better than renting from a slumlord. But the use case for a pure investor isn't there. And we're looking at end users, and those end users, owner buyers, are looking at the insane HOA dues and the limited amenities and the poor stick frame construction, and they're saying, I think I'll just rent. That's why this market has been so stagnant for attached dwellings. And now we're going to have a building boom. And the building boom, I think, might result in more sales because they're within the neighborhood. They're not in big apartment buildings. So we'll see.
Yeah, in established spots, yeah.
Does it make sense to turn a Martin Acres ranch into a duplex, or does it make sense to build an ADU? For the first time, you can build an ADU that doesn't have to be owner-occupied. You can rent both of them, which is effectively a duplex. So things are going to change.
The buy land, they're not making it anymore. And not, financial advice or anything, but these property types that you'll find in that you can currently find in Table Mesa and Martin Acres, these larger lots, kind of smaller homes, they're not building those anymore. When they're building single family homes, you can look at Tacona or Firestone or Frederick and see what they're building now as single family homes, and those still aren't the same. So I think that that value or that kind of model home that we're used to seeing and selling in Boulder is, there is only getting more rare.
Yeah, and from a personal business perspective, I agree with you fully, but I also want to make a point that I feel like is worth making. We'll make more money when this happens. Like, we're going to see a lot newer houses. We're going to see a lot more sales.
In case you were worried, yeah.
We as agents will do better, but I think that the density of the number of people that are going to be living here is going to result in a lot more traffic and congestion. And a potential, the unknown is what happens in the neighborhoods, right? Because the zoning should allow for things like neighborhood coffee shops. But at the same time, the zoning for a coffee shop and a commercial kitchen is so prohibitive that it's insanely expensive. You're not going to build it in an old Martin Acres ranch. You're going to scrape and start over again to build a neighborhood coffee shop in Martin Acres. Does it mean it's possible? It is. Where would you put it? Probably on the corner of Martin and like Ash, right? You'd put it right in the center where it gets the most traffic, and there's street parking. So maybe one of those 4-corner houses, like that really weird looking one that's on.
Yeah.
Well, everyone knows this corner, so I'll leave it at that. That one could get scraped all day long, right? And it's a big lot.
Maybe I'm sounding a little, I don't even know how I'm going to sound with this, but we were just talking about how there's enough vacant commercial space that's being unutilized, that's not being utilized either.
But they're not in residential center, they're not in the 15-minute neighborhoods.
No, and it's not filling that whole comp plan or whatever, but it's not like there's a lack of commercial space anyway. I'm thinking about a neighborhood morgue or something. I'm sure the neighbors would love that.
Maybe a neighborhood crematorium is what I
a little body farm in the backyard,
every
just to be that guy.
Every house in Martin Acres had a little incinerator in the backyard, a little concrete structure to burn your trash in back in the day. Well, I'm sure some bodies will burn there too.
Okay.
All right, that's enough.
No,
darkness. Let's get.
We're gonna keep our finger on those pulses, though. We'll be around, and
Why don't you tell me about After Effects, Hamish? It's time for our carve-outs.
This one's gonna be really light, but we talk about Photoshop. Adobe's got this creative suite, and so you've got like Photoshop, Premiere Pro, After Effects, Adobe Illustrator, Acrobat, Express, some of the others, like Bridge, I think is one of them. My main three are Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and After Effects, though I'll easily say After Effects I am not very competent at. And so it has been, since I started with Premiere Pro, a parallel learning journey, and I have easily become very proficient at Premiere Pro. And
expert.
Oh, I'll take that. I think expert.
How many videos have you made in Premiere Pro?
Oh my god. Dude, I couldn't. I'm past count.
At some point, Hamish, you have to.
I'm over 1,000.
You're a professional photographer and videographer and video editor.
Well, soon, professional motion graphics. That's the. I think I'm squaring out my corner or my shape. So After Effects is motion graphics, it's animation, it's design, graphic design. And I think it's got an incredibly large breadth. But the current use case the current use case that I'm eyeing it up for right now is graphs and everything. I don't know if you guys have picked up on this, but we're fairly data-driven here at the Brokerage, and like to use that to guide our decision-making. And so going forward in a lot of the videos already that we have out, we're using graphs and visualizing data quite a bit. To get away from a static image that can be a little bit bland on a video, especially when we're getting deep into the data, adding some animations and whatnot is the logical next step. And it's very interesting. I have, you want to do it yourself and kind of have that self-starter mindset to it. So I did that for 1 or 2 graphs maybe a year ago. And boy, did it take forever and was needlessly complicated. And now, with AI and its knowledge of these software and these programs, I can be like, here's what I want to do. And I used to be building these graphs by scratch, and I would be calculating the percent difference so that when I entered in my like expressions or the values for these animations, it would do it directly proportional. So like this pie chart is opening up, 27% to represent it correctly. I talked to AI, it's like, just trace it. And I'm like, what? And it's like, yeah, just trace it over and then you're good to go. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And so it's, yeah.
So AI is training you how to be more efficient, but AI is not creating the graphs for you. It's just teaching you how to use it. Okay, got it.
Exactly. But like you've been using Claude to put together some of those graphs. If we can get that to print to PDF, then I can pull those layers out and then just animate those layers themselves.
Oh yeah, easily.
And so, yeah. And so it's this big old culmination, right? If I can pull these Photoshop layers and then chuck them into After Effects and have those layers and yada yada. But it is it's a different language, and you would think Adobe to Adobe it'd be 1-to-1 or whatever, but even the shortcuts are different. Everything's just,
I mean, that was my experience when I played with After Effects like 5 years ago, and I was like, this is so slow and tedious, and the design language tools are not the same, and it's like I feel like I'm wearing oven mitts and I'm trying to type on a keyboard. I'm like, this is really awkward and not working very well. But you've been teasing After Effects as a enhancement to Hamish 2026. Like it's like the power up to the character. I've been like, I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it. Like I remember there's
and
like
then
that,
you'll see it and it's like lackluster. But
there's that Instagram channel that does land sales. And they like create this laser that moves around the house and it zooms in and the price pops up and then you see the laser around the lot.
Oh, man.
I'm like, that is so cool looking. And I'm like, Hamish, can you do this? And you're like, I could do this. That was like 4 years ago.
I will learn. Yeah.
Where is it?
Oh, brother. Did you see it? I sent it to you. It was like on Vimeo and I was like trying to do this animation where like I'm in the house in the backyard and then the house like zooms over and I'm in front of the house. Remember I sent that a while ago. It was so choppy and bad, but it is.
Hey, this is how we learn. It's how we learn.
This is how we learn.
I'm actually excited that you're still on taking it on, and that you're adding. Well, that you're adding on to your skill sets. It's important to learn and grow, and I look forward to seeing animated charts on After Effects. Very exciting.
There have been some, in some of our reels and stuff. They've been there, but it's always depending on the context of the data and how it's being presented. It's a new way to do it. Yada yada. But we're getting there.
All right.
Complete.
My Carveout is I had an opportunity to visit the Institute of Arctic and Alpine Research at CU Boulder, also known as INSTAAR, in particular visiting their stable isotope lab. And that came courtesy of a good friend and past client. We originally had planned on picnicking just in Chautauqua just to spend time with them as friends, and then the weather turned bad. And he's like, why don't I give you a tour of the lab? I was like, that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
And boy, was it. The lab is huge. It's part of the science campus, which the east side, the serious part of CU, it's like how I often describe it to parents. Like, it's not the party zone, right? This is not the hill. And it's a really expensive building with a giant lab inside, and the equipment inside, they've got mass spectrometers and other types of equipment to measure. I can't remember the term he used. It's not mass spectrometry. It's a different form of spectrometry. But basically, they take ice cores, they melt them, vaporize the water, and then they can detect what's in the water. And it all has to be in a clean room almost environment. And they've been doing this for years and years. And this particular client and friend, who I won't name, got their PhD through this process, through working in this lab. And he's so brilliant. And I feel like this sad gratitude that science is still happening in this incredibly like anti-climate awareness, anti-environmental, anti-sustainability awareness regime that we're dealing with, that is, trying to sell off NCAR and shut down funding for any sort of climate science project. And look, it's really important that the research goes on. And I was just so grateful to see that research happening and seeing it happening right here in Boulder. There are so many smart and honestly
backyard.
brilliant people here that are involved in climate change research, that care about the sustainability of our planet and are doing really cool stuff right in this community. So getting that tour was awesome. Brought me back to my roots. I do have a bachelor's in biology with a focus in environmental science, and I originally thought that was my career path. And every once in a while, I'm very yearn for being among a bunch of scientist nerds and measuring things and writing things into notebooks in my composition book, which I was so happy to see. They're still using composition notebooks. I'm like, yes, this is real science happening. That's so cool. And so grateful for that tour. And I did put photos on my Instagram, just a couple of shots. You can see the ice cores in a recent personal Instagram post. Those are the full ice cores. The ones that actually go into the machine are cut back to a much smaller size. But very, very cool stuff happening right here at CU Boulder. And, I guess
those cores, you can kind of travel back in time, right? And then they vaporize it, and they can read the composition, essentially, of the atmosphere and everything.
They're trying to read the composition of the atmosphere, the level of greenhouse gases, all these years ago to determine how it's changed over time. It's not exactly... Like, it's the science to me seems like common sense. So those that are in complete denial of climate changing blow my mind. Like,
they're like, how do they know back then? And you're like,
right. Well, let me show you how they know. And we got to see it. I got to see it firsthand. Leah joined me as well. It was so cool. It was so cool. And also got to hold our friend and client's baby, who was very interactive and playful. That was a very delightful experience. So overall, great weekend. Sweet. Nice little field trip to INSTAAR to cap it off. And I think this is a great spot, Hamish, because this podcast has hit the 2 hour and 30-minute mark to wrap it up. And so from the depths of our hearts, we'd like to express gratitude for you if you've stuck it out and listened to this entire podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the House Einstein Brokerage, you can do that at houseeinstein.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can also sign up for an evaluation of your home's value. No obligation for either of those. It's our way to get to know you. The newsletter is the only place that you'll find us talking about active listings. And I hope you've been entertained, which was our mission at the House Einstein podcast. In the House Einstein podcast, we hope you've enjoyed this. You've had fun. We always welcome your feedback, so don't hesitate to reach out in all the ways you could provide feedback. You can even just pick up the phone and call me if you want to give me in-person feedback. But I'm happy to get it via email, text message, Twitter, Facebook. Boy, people reach me in so many different ways. Always happy to see that feedback, and grateful for you for having stuck it out and listened or watched this podcast. And we'll catch you next time.
Next time. Thanks so much.